Chapter 281. Chapter 281. I'm a proud son of the heavens. 549690339. You're looking for death. Die. Zhao Hong shouted coldly as he slashed out with his blade. A sharp blade light slashed towards the golden-eyed blood corpse. Clang! The knife light and the nail collided, making a sound of metal clashing and sparks flying. Bang! A figure flew far away. It was Zhao Hong. He was no match for the golden-eyed blood zombie and was sent flying by its claw. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse roared and continued to chase after Zhao Hong. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Zhao Hong's expression was extremely unsightly. Blood was flowing out of the corner of his mouth. He had been injured by that move just now. At this moment, the golden-eyed blood zombie pounced on him. He did not dare to continue fighting. He turned and ran. The direction he ran in was the direction of Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Not good, let's go. Lu Ming's expression changed. He and Xian Yanqing turned around and ran. You two still dare to run? Stop quickly and help me stall this blood corpse. If you die in the hands of a blood corpse, you'll die a happy death. But if you fall into my hands, I'll make you beg for death. Zhao Hong shouted coldly in an overbearing manner. What do you mean by one of the 50 super rookies of the Blood Zhao Empire? I think he's a complete idiot. Little Qing, what do you think? Lu Ming said in a disdainful tone. Xian Yanqing stumbled and almost fell. What did Lu Ming just call her? Little Qing. Xian Yanqing's eyes glowed viciously as he glared at Lu Ming. Little Qing, is that guy an idiot? Lu Ming pretended not to know and continued to ask. Yes. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth and only managed to spit out one word after a long time. Lu Ming was clearly taking advantage of her. You're looking for death. Zhao Hong bellowed and was about to release his essential qi to slash at Lu Ming. However, his speed slowed down as he gathered his essential qi. The golden-eyed blood zombie caught up and slashed at him. Qila! Even though Zhao Hong had escaped quickly, a piece of cloth was still caught. The piece of cloth that was caught happened to be on Zhao Hong's butt. Immediately, half of Zhao Hong's snow-white butt was exposed. Ah! Zhao Hong screamed and jumped forward as if he had been electrocuted. Only then did he escape the danger of being torn apart by the claw. However, the next moment he felt a chill on his butt. He turned his head and roared. Hey, why is that guy running in such a strange way? He keeps looking at his butt. Is he sick? Lu Ming's eyes were sharp. He noticed Zhao Hong's strange behavior and muttered. Zhao Hong's face was flushed red. His killing intent towards Lu Ming was so strong that it could not be dispersed. He frantically chased after Lu Ming and the golden-eyed blood corpse. Zhao Hong's speed was extremely fast and he was about to catch up to Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Ha ha, go to hell, kid. With a beauty accompanying you, you won't be lonely on the road to hell. Zhao Hong sneered. His essential qi burst forth and he increased his speed to the maximum. He flew over the heads of Lu Ming and Su Lingyue arrogantly. Behind them, the golden-eyed blood corpse roared and glared at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing with murderous intent. What? At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly felt that the demon-suppressing seal given to him by the Nine Suns Supreme was glowing faintly. Could it be that after the demon-suppressing token subdued the blood demon, it still has the energy to subdue this golden-eyed blood corpse? Lu Ming had a thought. I don't care, I'll give it a try. Lu Ming suddenly stopped in his tracks. The demon-suppressing token had unknowingly appeared in his hands. Lu Ming, why did you stop? Xian Yanqing was shocked. However, Lu Ming only smiled at her and did not explain. Damn it, Lu Ming. You can't die before I trample you under my feet. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth and stopped as well. He stood beside Lu Ming. Ha ha. These two bastards are probably scared silly. Zhao Hong ran madly and only stopped when he was 10 miles away. He stood high in the sky and looked from afar. Roar! The golden-eyed blood zombie roared angrily and was about to grab Lu Ming with its claws. Stop! The demon-suppressing token in Lu Ming's hand glowed and an invisible wave rushed toward the golden-eyed blood corpse. At the same time, Lu Ming shouted in his heart and turned into an invisible wave that rushed into the body of the golden-eyed blood corpse. All of this happened in silence. Even Xian Yanqing, who was standing beside him, didn't notice it. At this moment, Xian Yanqing's body was already covered in black lotus flowers. His true qi was at its maximum, ready to fight to the death. But suddenly, the golden-eyed blood corpse stopped and let out a low roar. It didn't continue to attack. I've succeeded. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Let's go back. Lu Ming gave another order in his heart. The next moment, the golden-eyed blood corpse growled in a low voice. It turned around and ran back. Then it jumped into the pit and disappeared. Xian Yanqing was dumbfounded. His eyes widened and he said, What's going on? Ha ha ha, little Qing, can't you tell? I Lu Ming am blessed by the heavens. What golden-eyed blood corpse, if it doesn't run away obediently when it sees me, it won't dare to attack me. Lu Ming laughed maniacally, looking like a smug and narcissistic person. Tisk. Xian Yanqing looked at him with disdain. He did not believe Lu Ming's nonsense at all. Then he gritted his teeth and said, Lu Ming, I'm warning you. Don't call me Shaoqing. All right, little Qing. Lu Ming answered. You. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth. He wanted to bite Lu Ming. In the distant sky, Zhao Hong was also dumbfounded. What's going on? Why didn't the golden-eyed blood corpse attack those two? Zhao Hong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Does it mean that the golden-eyed blood corpse won't attack if I admit defeat? Zhao Hong's imagination ran wild. However, he didn't dare to move forward for a while. The golden-eyed blood corpse was too strong. In a head-on battle, he would be killed in a few moves. In the stone forest, Lu Ming glanced at Zhao Hong, who was in the distance. He sneered and said to Xian Yanqing, Let's go. There are still so many blood-refining crystals left. Let's take them all. You're still going? Aren't you afraid of the golden-eyed blood corpse? Xian Yanqing hesitated. What are you afraid of? I told you I'm protected by the heavens. When the golden-eyed blood corpse sees me, it can't wait to run away. It won't dare to attack me. Don't worry, I'm here, it'll be fine. Lu Ming was full of nonsense and he strode forward proudly. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth and followed Lu Ming. When the two of them arrived at the pit, the golden-eyed blood corpse was still motionless. There was a smile on Lu Ming's face. He was not worried at all. He jumped into the pit and started to collect the blood-refining crystals. Seeing this, Xian Yanqing also felt relieved. For some reason, he suddenly believed Lu Ming's words a little. Bah, how is that possible? This guy is full of lies. Xian Yanqing shook his head and began to collect blood-refining crystals. I'm fine, I'm really fine. In the distance, Zhao Hong's mouth was so wide open that a goose egg could be stuffed in it when he saw this scene. Should I go over there and kill those two and take the blood-refining crystals? No, I'm a genius with a bright future. How can I take risks so easily? I'll wait until those two guys have collected all the blood-refining crystals and come out. Then, I'll kill them and the blood-refining crystals will be mine. Zhao Hong calculated and was no longer in a hurry. He waited in the air. Collect, collect, collect. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were extremely excited. A moment later, the two of them had collected more than 3,000 blood-refining crystals each. At this time, the blood-refining crystals in the pit were finally finished. Oh. Chapter 282. Chapter 282. The Sullen Zhao Hong. 549690339. What do we do? That guy is waiting for us outside. No matter which direction we go, he will probably chase us. Xian Yanqing looked up at the sky and frowned. Why do we have to go out? We can just cultivate here. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He leaped onto the pit and sat cross-legged at the side. Cultivate here. Xian Yanqing was in disbelief. Trust me. Lu Ming's voice was transmitted to Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing was skeptical. However, on second thought, Lu Ming had never been at a disadvantage before. Perhaps he really had a way. Gritting his teeth, Xian Yanqing decided to go all out. He sat down cross-legged, took out a handful of blood-refining crystals, swallowed them and began refining them. Lu Ming laughed and took a look at the sky. He took out a handful of blood-refining crystals and swallowed them, starting to refine them. In the sky, Zhao Hong was dumbfounded. He's actually refining blood crystals here? Damn it, damn it. Zhao Hong roared in his heart, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. In his opinion, all the blood-refining crystals here belonged to him. Now that Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were refining his blood-refining crystals, it was a heinous crime. However, he was still hesitant and did not go over. Very soon, Lu Ming had refined a handful of blood-refining crystals, and took out another handful to refine. One after another, it did not take long for Lu Ming to refine hundreds of blood-refining crystals. Xian Yanqing was about the same. That golden-eyed blood corpse hasn't appeared yet, so it should be fine. Smash it and die. Zhao Hong growled and flew toward Lu Ming. In a short while, he was close to Lu Ming. Is it finally here? The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. He did not care and continued to cultivate. Xian Yanqing was shocked and stood up to block. Little bastard, die. Die. Zhao Hong roared and was about to slash down with his saber. Roar. Suddenly, a loud roar came from the pit as the golden-eyed blood corpse charged out and attacked Zhao Hong. Bang! Caught off guard, Zhao Hong was hit by the golden-eyed blood zombie's claw. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body flew far away. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse quickly charged towards Zhao Hong. What's going on? How did this happen? Those two bastards have been here for so long, collecting refined blood crystals and refining them. The golden-eyed blood corpse didn't even rush out, so why did it rush out as soon as I arrived? I'm not convinced. Zhao Hong roared in his heart. But he didn't dare to stay, so he turned and ran. The golden-eyed blood zombie clawed at Zhao Hong's pants, leaving a huge hole in his pants. Zhao Hong's Snow White but was writhing in the air. Hey, your butt is out again, haha eh? Why did I say again? Lu Ming laughed heartily. Xian Yanqing's face turned red. He snorted and turned around. Zhao Hong let out a long cry. His hair was in a mess and his aura was shocking. However, he was met with the claw of the golden-eyed blood corpse. Buzz! The claw ray swept past and left 5 wounds on Zhao Hong's body. It was as if he had been cut by a blade, and blood was dripping from his body. Zhao Hong spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured and his speed had decreased. He could no longer escape from the golden-eyed blood corpse. If we're going to die, we'll die together. Zhao Hong howled and dashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming got up and looked at him with a faint smile. A scene that made Zhao Hong vomit blood appeared. When the golden-eyed blood zombie rushed past Lu Ming, it did not even look at Lu Ming and continued to pursue him. Why? Zhao Hong bellowed in anger. He was unwilling and confused. However, it was useless. The golden-eyed blood corpse quickly caught up to him. No matter how talented he was still torn in half by the golden-eyed blood corpse after a few moves. Zhao Hong, one of the 50 super rookies of the Blood Zhao Empire, a genius on the same level as the Scorching Sun's 6 heroes, had died just like that in a state of unwillingness, doubt, and humiliation. His blood and essence were all converted into blood-refining crystals. 81 blood-refining crystals. Zhao Hong had refined a total of 81 blood-refining crystals. His second bloodline was a first-level king bloodline. Lu Ming kept all of them, including Zhao Hong's blood-refining crystals. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse growled and appeared beside Lu Ming. It stood there obediently. Xian Yanqing was dumbfounded. She stared at him for a while and suddenly remembered that the powerful blood demon had also been obedient to Lu Ming. Lu Ming, do you have any way to subdue the demonic creature? Xian Yanqing asked. Didn't I already tell you? I'm a proud son of the heavens and am blessed by the heavens. These demonic creatures will naturally be submissive when they see me. Lu Ming had a smug look on his face. He sized up Xian Yanqing and said, How is it? Are you tempted? Why don't you be my bed-warming maid? If you follow me, you'll have endless benefits. Lu Ming had a smug look. Warm your head, humph. I guess you must have some kind of treasure that can subdue demons. No way, one day I will step on you. Xian Yanqing snorted coldly, turned his proud neck, and went to the side to refine the blood-refining crystals. Lu Ming chuckled and instructed the golden-eyed blood corpse to stand guard at the side. He then took out Zhao Hong's storage ring. Lu Ming put the rest aside and took out all the blood-refining crystals. There were more than 500 blood-refining crystals in Zhao Hong's storage ring. This meant that at least a few hundred young experts had died at Zhao Hong's hands. This time Lu Ming benefited from it. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing focused on refining the blood crystals. During this time, other young men came, but they were scared away by the golden-eyed blood corpse. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. Lu Ming refined more than 3,000 blood-refining crystals. In total, Lu Ming had refined more than 6,000 blood refinement pills and blood refinement crystals. At this moment, Lu Ming's spine was glowing with a thick blood-red light. The blood qi seemed to have substance and was about to turn into drops of blood. That's enough. Now, break through the martial arts grandmaster realm and awaken the second bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He waved his hand and hundreds of thousands of spiritual crystals appeared beside him. After that, he circulated the true war dragon technique. The vortex in his dantian spun rapidly, and the dragon-shaped true qi in his body surged. At his spine, his blood vessels surged, and his blood qi exploded. At this moment, Lu Ming's essence, energy, and spirit were condensed to the extreme. Boom! All of a sudden, a deafening roar came from within Lu Ming's body. A surge of essence energy surged up and soared into the clouds. Within a radius of dozens of miles, countless young experts looked over. The qi is soaring to the sky. Someone has broken through to Wuzong. What a terrifying aura. This kind of power is too shocking. What kind of genius is he? When I broke through to Wuzong, my essence qi was less than 1/5 of his. How terrifying. Many people were discussing and some even rushed over, but with the golden-eyed blood corpse they couldn't step in. There were even some who wanted to force their way in but were killed by the golden-eyed blood zombies. The others didn't dare to force their way in anymore. The pillar of essence qi only disappeared after a long while. Devour! At that moment, Lu Ming's 9 dragons bloodline appeared. He opened his mouth and inhaled. Large pieces of spirit crystals exploded and were devoured by the 9 dragons bloodline, continuously transforming into Lu Ming's essential qi. The essential qi in Lu Ming's body continued to strengthen and improve. Oh! Chapter 283. Chapter 283, Breaking Through to Grandmaster Second Bloodline. 549690339. Not long after, Lu Ming had absorbed at least 200,000 spiritual crystals and converted them into essential qi. Lu Ming felt that the essential qi in his body was 10 times stronger than before. The martial arts grandmaster realm was really powerful. Lu Ming had already broken through to the first level of the martial ancestor realm. Bloodline awaken. At this moment, Lu Ming's spine trembled and a rich blood-red light spread out. At his spine, there was an extremely rich blood-red light, as if something was about to break out of his body. Awaken! Lu Ming growled again. Bang! A bloody light exploded at his spine, and an object condensed. It was actually a stone tablet. The stone tablet was 10 meters tall and was suspended above Lu Ming's head. There seemed to be some words on the stone tablet, but they were blurry and unclear. This is my second bloodline? It was actually a stone tablet? Could it be a special bloodline? Lu Ming thought to himself. Buzz! The stone tablet trembled, and a Esilavira chakra emerged. The Esilavira chakra represented a king-level bloodline. A Esilavira chakra represented a first-class king-level bloodline. However, it was not over yet. The stone tablet shook again, and the second Esilavira chakra emerged, followed by the third. After the third Esilavira chakra appeared, there were no more chakra. The third-level king-level blood meridian was the final level of the second blood meridian that Lu Ming had awakened. The 3 Esilavira chakra glowed and were extremely dazzling. I've taken more than 6,000 blood refinement pills and blood refinement crystals. The bloodline I've awakened didn't disappoint me. Lu Ming revealed a smile. He was quite satisfied. With his talent, if he had not taken more than 6,000 blood refinement pills and blood refinement crystals, He would probably only be able to awaken a level 9 ordinary bloodline. It would be impossible for him to even reach the king level. Who? His second blood meridian vibrated and emitted a strong suction force. The boundless heaven-earth yuan qi was absorbed by Lu Ming and transformed into essential qi. This was the king-level bloodline, which was extremely magical. When it was first awakened, it would have a chance to madly devour the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and then it would slowly calm down. I can't waste this opportunity. Lu Ming waved his hand and more than 200,000 spiritual crystals appeared in the surroundings. These spiritual crystals were obtained from killing other young masters. Bang! 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 The spirit crystals exploded one by one, and turned into rolling energy that was constantly absorbed and refined by Lu Ming. Lu Ming's cultivation soared like a rocket. It was not long before Lu Ming's cultivation level had broken through to the early stage of the first-level martial arts grandmaster realm. However, this was not his limit and he was still increasing. An hour later, Lu Ming's cultivation had broken through to the peak of the first-grade martial ancestor realm. He was only a step away from the second-grade martial ancestor realm. At this time, the second bloodline finally calmed down and stopped absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Who? Lu Ming took in a deep breath. His eyes flickered and shot out like two long spears. Lu Ming smiled as he felt the almost endless essential qi in his body. However, in terms of true qi, he was much stronger than before. With a thought, the second bloodline was hidden. It's only a third-level king bloodline. What's there to be proud of? Watch me. Xian Yanqing, who had been paying attention to Lu Ming's breakthrough, snorted and sat down cross-legged to continue refining the blood crystals. Lu Ming smiled and did not mind. He moved his hand and took out a jade bottle. It was the Yuan ancient panaceas. He still had dozens of bottles in his hands. He planned to use the Yuan ancient panaceas to raise his cultivation to the second level of the martial ancestor realm. When he opened the jade bottle, the bloodline of the 9 dragons appeared. He opened his mouth and sucked in all the 9 Yuan ancient panaceas in the bottle. The energy required to break through to the martial ancestor realm was even more terrifying. Even if there were too few Yuan ancient spiritual pills, they would not be of much use. Lu Ming might as well swallow the entire bottle. As Lu Ming refined the pill, he diverted some of his attention to observe Xian Yanqing. An hour later, Xian Yanqing stopped refining blood crystals and started to break through. With Xian Yanqing's talent, breaking through to Wuzong was not a problem. Soon she successfully broke through, and a terrifying essence qi shot up into the sky. This essence qi was not any smaller than Lu Ming's earlier one, caused another commotion. The people nearby were extremely shocked. 2 streaks of essence qi shot up into the sky in a row, and each one was extremely terrifying. Could it be that there were 2 monstrous geniuses breaking through here? Everyone was extremely curious. Boom! After Xian Yanqing's breakthrough, he began to awaken his second bloodline. The blood light soared into the sky and was extremely dense, almost covering an area of several li. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. This blood aura was too shocking. The momentum was so great that it was 10 times stronger than before. No, it was more than that. The blood qi swept out and churned. An astonishing pressure spread out. A moment later, the blood light dissipated, and a figure appeared above Xian Yanqing's head. Yes, that's right. Xian Yanqing's second bloodline was actually a human. It was a woman who was more than 10 meters tall, with graceful curves. She wore a black veil and sat cross-legged on a black lotus. The woman's appearance was unclear, but her figure was extremely good. She exuded an alluring aura everywhere, like a demoness. The most terrifying thing that stunned Lu Ming was that the woman's body was actually emitting 7 Esilavira chakras. A 7th-level king-level bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He had a dumbfounded look on his face. He was too shocked. King-class bloodline was extremely difficult to awaken. For example, Duanmu Lin, the genius of the Duanmu family that was said to be able to surpass Feng Wuji in the future, only had a second-class king-class bloodline. Geniuses like the 6 heroes of the Scorching Sun would usually only awaken to the first level of the king class. Some people might even awaken more. From this, one could see how terrifying a 7th-level king was. Genius, this was a true genius. Xian Yanqing clearly did not refine as many blood refinement pills and blood refinement crystals as Lu Ming, but the blood meridian he awakened was much stronger than Lu Ming's. This was a true monster. Even if Xian Yanqing did not refine the blood crystal, he could probably awaken a 5th-level king bloodline. At this moment, Xian Yanqing opened his eyes and shouted, "Swallow!" Huh! The heaven and earth spiritual qi in the area rushed towards Xian Yanqing like a madman. The heaven and earth spiritual qi in a radius of dozens of miles was stirred up, and a strong wind seemed to be blowing in the air. What's going on? I can't absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth anymore. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is being controlled by someone. Within a few dozen miles, exclamations rang out. At the same time, Xian Yanqing waved his hand and a pile of spiritual crystals appeared. There were hundreds of thousands of them. All of them exploded and turned into a sea of spiritual qi, pouring into Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing's cultivation level rose rapidly. Early stage of martial ancestor realm 1 Dan, middle stage of martial ancestor realm 1 Dan. Very quickly, he reached the peak of the first stage of the martial ancestor realm. However, he did not stop. With a boom, he broke through the bottleneck and broke through to the second stage of the martial ancestor realm. Xian Yanqing's cultivation continued to rise until he reached the peak of the second level of martial ancestor realm. Oh, this Jiao is too terrifying. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. When he broke through, it was already extremely rare for him to make use of the power of his newly awakened bloodline to rush to the peak of the martial ancestor realm 1 Dan. It was equivalent to a normal person's years of hard work. However, Xian Yanqing was even more terrifying. He rushed straight to the peak of the second level of martial ancestor realm. This was a 7th-level king bloodline. Of course, this kind of improvement was a one-time thing. In the future, he would have to slowly cultivate. Oh. Chapter 284. Chapter 284. Chapter 284 A Lesson. 549690339. Xian Yanqing stood up and looked at Lu Ming smugly. How is it? What's a mere king-level 3rd-rank bloodline? Now take my palm. Xian Yanqing shouted and struck out with his palm. A black palm print formed with terrifying power. Human Dao palm. Lu Ming threw out a palm as well. His essential qi surged and formed a huge palm print, which collided with Xian Yanqing's black palm print. With a loud bang, the two of them trembled and took a step back. You've broken through to the second level of the martial ancestor realm? Xian Yanqing exclaimed. Of course. Lu Ming said with a smile. Before Xian Yanqing's breakthrough, he had consumed 20 bottles of Yuan ancient panaceas, and broke through to the early stage of the second-grade martial ancestor realm. Don't think that I can't step on you just because you've broken through to the second stage of the martial ancestor realm. Xian Yanqing shouted as his body glowed with a blood-red light. He was about to activate his bloodline. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse appeared beside Xian Yanqing and glared at her with its mouth wide open. Xian Yanqing shrieked and quickly stepped back. Lu Ming, you're shameless. So what if I'm shameless? Every day you say that you will step on me. Today I will step on you. Do it. Lu Ming chuckled coldly. With a light shout he pounced on Xian Yanqing. At the same time the golden-eyed blood corpse growled and pounced on Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing's body glowed with a blood-red light as he was about to activate his bloodline. However, the golden-eyed blood zombie charged forward and a blood-red light shot towards Xian Yanqing, interrupting the activation of her bloodline. At the same time, Lu Ming pounced forward and sent a palm strike into Xian Yanqing's dantian, temporarily sealing her essential qi and restraining her. Get lost! Xian Yanqing screamed and struggled with all his might. What are you shouting for? Lu Ming used some force and Xian Yanqing's essential qi was temporarily sealed. How could he resist? He was restrained by Lu Ming and could not move. Lu Ming, let me go. Otherwise I won't let you off. Xian Yanqing shouted. Now that you're completely in my hands, you still dare to threaten me. It seems that I was too honest in the past. I need a beating. Lu Ming said and then gave him a lesson. Lu Ming, I hate you. I'll definitely trample you under my feet, Xian Yanqing said through gritted teeth. In the end, she gritted her teeth and cursed in a low voice, looking as if she was ready to let him do whatever he wanted. However, as she scolded, her tears started to flow down. This time Lu Ming was a little helpless. He quickly let go of Xian Yanqing and said, "Hey, why are you crying? I haven't even done anything yet." However, Xian Yanqing's cry was like a river that had its gates opened, and he couldn't stop crying. She was crying so sadly and pitifully. Her tears flowed like a string of pearls and fell to the ground. It was as if she had a great grievance that she wanted to vent out through this cry. Lu Ming was at a loss for words. He felt as if he had done something wrong. But he hadn't done anything yet. So he could only stay by her side. After a long while, Xian Yanqing finally stopped crying. He stared at Lu Ming in a daze for a long time before he suddenly gritted his teeth and said, "Humph, Lu Ming, I'll let you off for today. One day, I'll trample you under my feet." This again. Lu Ming was completely speechless. "I'm leaving, are you coming?" Lu Ming asked. "Humph, of course we're going. Don't even think about escaping." Xian Yanqing snorted and followed Lu Ming. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. The two of them left the stone forest. Of course, the golden-eyed blood zombie was also with them. However, Lu Ming took out a very large black robe and a bamboo hat for the golden-eyed blood zombie to put on, as it would be too conspicuous. The two of them randomly chose a direction and advanced. Along the way, they encountered a few blind martial artists who were easily dealt with by Lu Ming. 2 hours later. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of a bell came from the distance and reverberated in the world. No one knew how far the bell came from, but it sounded like it was ringing right next to their ears. What a wondrous sound! What does this mean? Lu Ming was a little curious. Xian Yanqing shook his head and did not say anything. "Let's go take a look." "Let's go," Lu Ming said. Essential qi gushed out of him as he soared into the sky and flew in the direction of the bell. After stepping into the martial arts grandmaster realm, he could finally fly as he pleased. Xian Yanqing and the golden-eyed blood corpse moved and followed Lu Ming. Clang! A moment later, the second bell chimed. It sounded similar to just now, but Lu Ming and the rest were clearly a distance away from the location of the bell. Lu Ming and the rest continued to fly towards the source of the bell. A moment later, the bell rang for the third time. The volume of the sound was the same as the previous two, as if it was right beside his ear. Buzz! An NBSP whoosh! Oh! From time to time, the sound of the air being cut could be heard in the air. Not only Lu Ming and the rest, but the others also heard the bell and headed in the direction of the bell. Not long after, the fourth bell rang. At that moment, Lu Ming and the rest saw a huge mountain. This mountain was so tall that it reached the clouds. It was extremely majestic. And the bell was ringing from the top of this mountain. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they discovered that the mountain was blocked by a layer of light screen, and they couldn't enter at all. At this moment, hundreds of young experts had gathered at the foot of the mountain. Buzz! A flash of sword light appeared, and a young man wearing a swordsman's robe stopped in the air. The crowd was shocked. Some of them recognized Duan Ling from the Dark Moon's 9 heroes. Following that, experts appeared from time to time. Other than Duan Ling, 2 of the Blood Zhao Empire's 50 super rookies had also appeared. Clang! Clang! The bell was long and would ring once every moment. When the 8th sound rang out, a demonic-looking young man with his hands behind his back walked over from the air. "Yang Liuji is here!" someone exclaimed. Even the super rookies of the Blood Zhao 50 had their expressions changed and became extremely serious. The geniuses on the Cloud Emperor ranking were too strong. At this moment, more than 1,000 people had gathered at the foot of the mountain. Clang! A moment later, the 9th bell chimed. When the 9th bell rang, the light screen shrouding the mountain trembled and actually dissipated, turning into nothing and revealing the mountain's true appearance. Oh! Chapter 285. Chapter 285. Snatching the Mountain Path. 549690339. There were 8 paths in front of him that led straight to the top of the mountain. On every path at every set distance, there would be a ball of glittering things that revealed the light of treasures. That's a treasure. That's right, those who can stay here must be extraordinary. Many people's eyes lit up. Look, there's a stone tablet over there. There are words on it. Someone shouted. At the intersection of each road, there was a platform. In front of the platform, there was a stone tablet. Everyone went up to take a look, and their eyes lit up. The meaning of the stone tablet was obvious. It said that this was the competition path given to the disciples by the Cloud Emperor Palace. Each path was set up with inscription formations and only one person could walk on each path. Only 8 people could pass through the 8 paths, and there would be some treasures as rewards along the way. Everyone's eyes lit up. This path is mine. It's mine. Immediately, more than a dozen people rushed to the platform on the first road. Boom! But immediately after, a ball of hot fist energy, like the sun, blasted towards the platform. More than a dozen young experts were directly blasted into ashes without even letting out a scream. A young man stepped forward and looked around. It was the 6 extremes of Yang. Most of the people's faces changed. It was clear that Yang Liuji had taken the first path, and this path was now his. The second one. Some people rushed towards the second path. Swish! An iron rod swept across, and a dozen young men screamed as they were swept off the platform. A young man with messy hair and an iron rod in his hand walked onto the second platform. One of the 50 super rookies of Bloodjiao, Bloodstaff Iron Demon. Someone exclaimed. Many people's eyes flickered. They wanted to rush forward, but Iron Demon was extremely powerful. With one iron rod, he swept away thousands of soldiers. Whoosh! A ray of sword light appeared on the platform of the third path like a flying immortal. It was Duan Ling, one of the 9 talents of the Dark Moon. Boom! On the 6th path, there was also an expert, one of the 50 super rookies of Bloodjiao. Immediately, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th paths were all occupied. The 4 of them stood on top, and the others retreated in fear. No one went up to court death. As for the remaining 4 paths, the competition was intense. Groups of people charged forward and fought with all their might, causing people to fall one after another. This was the martial arts grandmaster's battlefield. It was difficult for the grandmaster realm martial artists to interfere. I want one, Xian Yanqing murmured. Then his body moved and he rushed towards the 5th path. Great demonic palm. Xian Yanqing's demonic palm print was a martial technique of unknown level. As her cultivation level increased, its power became more and more terrifying. Ah! Ah! With a series of screams, 7 or 8 martial ancestor realm experts were sent flying by Xian Yanqing. Some of them even exploded in the air. So strong, who is this person? Someone was shocked. If you don't want to die, get lost. Xian Yanqing shouted coldly. Some people didn't believe it and wanted to rush forward, but they were killed by Xian Yanqing in one move. The remaining people were helpless and could only move to other routes. Then I'll have one too. Lu Ming dashed toward the 8th path with the golden-eyed blood corpse following closely behind. Die! A ray of saber light was aimed at Lu Ming's head. It was very powerful. He was a warrior at the peak of the 1st level of the martial ancestor realm. You're the one who's going to die. The demon subduing spear appeared in his hand, and he swept it out. Bang! The young man's body flew out like a cannonball. He flew for an unknown distance and disappeared without a trace. Kid, it's you. All of a sudden, a cold voice rang out near Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes swept across the room and he was amused. Wasn't this the young man in the brocade robe, who had snatched the Yuan ancient spiritual pill? The young man in the brocade robe swept his gaze across Lu Ming's surroundings. Then his eyes gleamed coldly as he sneered, Brat, now that you're here alone, I'd like to see how you die. Oh really? I'm afraid that you're far from enough. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Brat, it's useless to be stubborn. Die. The young man in the brocade robe shouted as he emitted a violent aura. 3rd stage martial ancestor realm. This embroidered-robed youth had actually reached the 3rd stage martial ancestor realm. A while ago, His cultivation was still at the peak of the second level of the martial ancestor realm. It seemed that the youth in the brocade robe had a fortuitous encounter in the past few days, allowing his cultivation to break through. Die! The purple light on the young man's body turned golden in the blink of an eye. He struck out with his palm and a golden true dragon flew out, pouncing toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not even look and pulled out his gun. Bang! The golden true dragon was like tofu. It was smashed into pieces by Lu Ming's spear. The violent spear's gleam continued to sweep toward the young man in embroidered robes. How did this happen? The embroidered-robed youth cried out in disbelief. His cultivation had broken through to the third tier of the martial arts grandmaster realm. Moreover, Lu Ming was alone. He had thought that killing Lu Ming would be a piece of cake. He had never expected that the martial arts technique he was most proud of would be shattered by Lu Ming's spear. At this moment he shouted and used all his strength to resist. Bang! The violent spear radiance struck his body, shattering all his defenses. His body made a series of cracking sounds, and many of his bones were broken. He fell off the platform like a pile of meat paste. He couldn't be more dead. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and sucked the storage ring of the young man in the brocade robe into his hand. Then he went to kill the others. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming's attack was direct and domineering. He formed a huge spear ray with his long spear and swept away the army. Bang! Bang! Those young men were swept away by Lu Ming like broken gunny sacks. The bodies of those with weaker cultivation exploded immediately. In an instant, Lu Ming was the only one standing proudly on the platform at the intersection of the 8th road with a gun. Who is this person? He's too strong. Many people looked at Lu Ming in shock and did not dare to step forward. Just like that, the 5th and 8th paths were occupied by Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing respectively. There was only the 4th and 7th paths left, and the competition was extremely fierce. The killing continued and blood flowed like a river. In the sky, inscriptions appeared, and blood-refining crystals were formed. A moment later, the 4th and 7th paths also had their respective owners. The 4th option was a bald youth with the strength of a peak martial ancestor 3 Dan. He was extremely powerful. Of course, compared to the geniuses of the Burning Sun 6 heroes, he was still slightly inferior. The 7th path was occupied by a short and chubby youth. This person's cultivation was also at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm. No one dared to challenge the 8 paths. Charge! Then the people on the 8 platforms all rushed towards the road. Lu Ming also rushed toward the mountain road, the golden-eyed blood zombie following closely behind. The golden-eyed blood corpse was not human. That was why it could travel with Lu Ming. Not long after he rushed out, light and shadows flickered in front of him. 4 tiger-shaped demonic beasts suddenly appeared and blocked his way. It was obvious that these 4 demonic beasts were formed by the inscription formation, and were not real. 4 demonic beasts, all in the early stage of the martial ancestor 3 Dan. Lu Ming could tell the strength of the 4 demonic beasts at a glance. Roar! Roar! The 4 monsters pounced at Lu Ming. Oh! Chapter 286. Chapter 286. Generous Reward. 549690339. Whoosh! Xiao! Xiao! Lu Ming's long spear trembled and 4 spear lights burst out. Pooh! The 4 demonic beasts were pierced by the spear's radiance, turning into energy particles and dissipating. Given Lu Ming's current cultivation, an ordinary 3rd-tier martial arts grandmaster was no match for him at all. He could easily kill him in one move. After the 4 demonic beasts were killed, Lu Ming walked a dozen meters forward. There was a ball of light with a secret manual floating in it. He inhaled the essential qi and the secret manual fell into Lu Ming's hands. The Tin Swing Sword Technique, a low earth-grade martial skill. Lu Ming flipped it open and was slightly disappointed. Lu Ming had no use for the swordsmanship. Currently, Lu Ming had the ancient shield technique and the 3 palms. These 2 martial arts techniques were extremely ancient, and were definitely top tier among the low earth level martial arts techniques. He had not cultivated the divine martial arts technique, 9 Dragons Heaven Stomping Steps. It could be said that Lu Ming was not lacking in other martial arts techniques for the time being. What he wanted was a spear technique. He was still using the black-grade low-level martial skill fire gun technique, which was completely insufficient. However, it was an earth-grade martial skill after all. If he couldn't use it, he could sell it for a shocking price. Some of the top geniuses of the large sects naturally did not lack earth-level martial arts techniques, but many small sects, and even martial arts grandmasters among the individual cultivators, could not have an earth-level martial arts technique at all. For an earth-grade martial skill, they would be willing to go bankrupt. Therefore, the price of an earth-level martial skill was at least 1 million spiritual crystals. Lu Ming kept the secret manual and continued to move upwards. After walking for 100 meters, there was a flash of light, and another demonic beast appeared. This time it was 8 demonic beasts of the early stage of the 3rd level of martial ancestor realm. It still did not hinder Lu Ming at all. Whoosh! Xiao! Xiao! 8 spear lights were shot out and 8 demonic beasts were killed. There was another ball of light in front. This time the ball of light contained a spiritual weapon combat sword. It was a 4th level upper spiritual weapon. Lu Ming sighed. Why were they all related to swords? However, since it was a 4th level upper spiritual weapon, its price was not any lower than the 10 swing sword technique. Naturally, Lu Ming quickly kept it. Then he continued to move upwards. But the next moment he was slightly stunned, because he saw a short and fat figure. It was the chunky young man from the 7th route. At this moment, Lu Ming realized that the 8th path was actually going to merge with the 7th path. They were going to merge into one. It was the same for the other paths, where the 1st and 2nd paths converged. The 3rd and 4th converged and the 5th and 6th converged. The 2 people on 2 different roads were about to meet. In the end, there were only 4 paths left. Obviously, the short and fat young man had also seen Lu Ming. A look of fear flashed in his eyes. His figure flashed repeatedly, wanting to rush up quickly. However, at the point where the 2 paths merged, light flickered and demonic beasts formed one after another. There were a total of 16 demonic beasts, and each of them had a stronger aura than the previous ones. The 16 demonic beasts were all at the peak of the martial ancestor 3 Dan. As soon as the 16 demonic beasts appeared, they pounced on the chunky young man. For a moment, the chunky young man was in a tough battle. Lu Ming rushed over quickly and spear lights burst out. The demonic beasts at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm could not put up any resistance and were killed by Lu Ming one by one. Soon, only a few of the 16 demonic beasts were left. Do you want me to do it myself? Lu Ming looked at the short and fat young man coldly. The short and stout youth's expression was extremely unsightly. Although he was a genius and his cultivation was at the peak of the 3rd grade Great Martial Master realm, his combat strength could even fight with an ordinary 4th grade Martial Ancestor realm martial artist. However, it was obvious that Lu Ming was stronger. He was not someone that an ordinary 4th level martial arts grandmaster could compare to. Although the short and stout youth was unwilling, he finally gritted his teeth and turned to leave. After all, no matter how precious the treasure was, if he lost his life, everything would be for naught. Lu Ming waved his spear and killed the remaining demonic beasts. He then walked toward the 3rd ball of light. This time the ball of light was still a martial technique. Lu Ming picked it up and took a look. Earth-grade high-level martial arts technique, 100 steps divine fist. Lu Ming was overjoyed. This time it was actually an earth-level upper-level martial arts technique. It was really shocking. For a sect like the mystical sword sect, the highest level of martial skills was only earth-grade upper level. The price was frighteningly high. Lu Ming kept it excitedly and then swept his gaze to the other roads. The young man on the 2nd path was the unluckiest. As one of the 50 super rookies of the Bloodjiao Empire, he had met Yang Liuji. Without even fighting, he had voluntarily withdrawn. In the battle with Yang Liuji, he would definitely die. Duan Ling easily killed his opponent in the 3rd and 4th path. The battle between the 5th and 6th paths was the most intense, causing the others to stop. Xian Yanqing had a fierce battle with another super rookie of the Bloodjiao 50. Xian Yanqing displayed his terrifying combat power. A 7th-level king bloodline was too powerful. The battle between them was extremely intense. This was a battle on the level of the 6 heroes of the Scorching Sun. After exchanging hundreds of blows, Xian Yanqing waved his hand and a huge, beautiful woman's arm appeared out of thin air. She slapped her opponent and sent him flying, causing him to spit out blood. Xian Yanqing won this battle. This little girl is so powerful. If she goes all out, I might not be able to defeat her. It seems like I have to master the 9 Dragons' Heaven Stomping Step as soon as possible after I get out of here. I also have to break through to the 5th stage of the True War Dragon technique as soon as possible. Otherwise, my advantage will become less and less obvious compared to the other geniuses. Lu Ming pondered secretly and continued to rush upwards. After a while, more demonic beasts appeared. This time there were only 4 of them, but each one of them had a much stronger aura than the previous demonic beasts. The 4 demonic beasts were all in the early stage of the Martial Ancestor Realm level 4. The 4 demonic beasts roared and pounced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming fought with his spear. A 4th-tier martial arts grandmaster could not be killed in one shot. It gave Lu Ming a lot of pressure. Lu Ming did not use the human path palm. He only used his long spear and the power of wind and fire to fight. He wanted to use this battle to properly comprehend the fusion of wind and fire. Bang! One of the demonic beasts was sent flying by Lu Ming's spear, but it did not dissipate. It roared and charged at him again. Just like that, the demonic beasts charged at him one after another, only to be sent flying by Lu Ming. Lu Ming's usage of the wind and fire forces gradually became more skillful. However, he was still far from being able to integrate them completely. After 100 moves, the 4 demonic beasts suddenly exploded and disappeared. Lu Ming was stunned. It seemed that after the continuous attacks, the energy of the 4 demonic beasts had been exhausted, and they had dissipated automatically. Lu Ming smiled. He walked forward and the 4th ball of light appeared. There was a jade box inside. Lu Ming kept it and was overjoyed when he opened it. In the jade box there were actually portions of demonic beast blood essence. There were 9 points in total. It was written on the jade box that this was the blood essence of a class 6 level 4 demonic beast. Lu Ming was overjoyed. 9 portions of 6th grade 4th level demonic beast blood essence was a terrifyingly high price. It was equivalent to a 6th grade martial arts grandmaster. It would be very difficult for the outside world to buy it. Lu Ming kept it carefully. As they continued to advance, not long after, 8 demonic beasts of the early stage of the martial arts grandmaster 4 Dan appeared. Lu Ming continued to practice with the spear. After a while, the 8 demonic beasts exploded and disappeared. This time, the thing that appeared in the ball of light made Lu Weiming a little disappointed. It was a low-rank earth cultivation technique. Chapter 287. Chapter 287. Chapter 287 A Withered Vine. 549690339. Lu Ming kept the cultivation technique and continued to move forward. After walking for a while, Lu Ming realized that the 2 paths overlapped again. In front of him, Xian Yanqing stood quietly, as if waiting for him. Xian Yanqing glanced at Lu Ming and walked forward without saying a word. With a flash of light, 16 demonic beasts were formed. This time there were 16 demonic beasts at the peak of the 4th level of the Martial Ancestor Realm. Xian Yanqing and the demonic beasts were fighting. "Little Qing, why didn't you wait for me to go together?" Lu Ming rushed forward and smiled. Xian Yanqing snorted coldly and glared at Lu Ming. He clapped his hands repeatedly, as if he had mistaken the demonic beast for Lu Ming. He vented all his anger on the demonic beast. These demonic beasts were in a miserable state. A few of them were defeated on the spot. "This woman is so violent," Lu Ming muttered, and the spear's gleam burst out. With the 2 of them working together, the demonic beasts were all killed in a short time. The 2 of them stood facing each other, looking at each other in silence. Only one of them could continue forward. "Little Qing, if we keep going, we'll probably have to fight Yang Liuji. If you can do it, I'll let you go," Lu Ming said with a smile. "No need. I'm no match for Yang Liuji. I'll give you this chance." But let me tell you, if you lose to Yang Liuji and lose the treasure at the top, I'll never let you go, Xian Yanqing said through gritted teeth. Lu Ming had the golden-eyed blood corpse by his side. Perhaps she could compete with Yang Liuji directly. Xian Yanqing knew that she was not Yang Liuji's match, so she might as well give her to Lu Ming. Haha. Thank you, Lu Ming said with a smile. Xian Yanqing glanced at him and turned to walk down. At the foot of the mountain, more than 1,000 people were looking up. They had no idea what was happening on the mountain because after the mountain road went up for a while, it was covered by a layer of hazy light, and they could not see clearly. What do you guys think is up there? There must be some treasures. The stone tablet said it was the way for the disciples of the Cloud Emperor Palace to compete. The reward must be extraordinary. It's a pity that we're too weak. We can't go up at all. I know the other 6 of those 8 people. There's also a young man and a young woman, but I've never seen them before. I wonder who they are, to be able to suppress all the heroes and seize a path. As soon as Lu Ming and the rest disappeared, the crowd below started to discuss. After that, they began to wait, wanting to know what kind of treasure was on the mountain path. Look, someone's coming down. Not long after, someone called out. Everyone looked over and saw the short and fat youth walking down the 7th path. It's Kudong. Why did he come down? What happened? Everyone was confused. Guys, look. The 50 super rookies have also come down. At this moment, 2 people walked down from the 2nd and 6th roads. These 2 were 2 of the 50 super rookies from the Bloodjiao Empire. Even the 50 super novelties have come down. What kind of danger is there up there? Where are the others? Why didn't he come down? Did he die up there? Kudong, what's going on? Everyone was guessing and someone asked Kudong. Kudong was silent for a moment. He did not hide anything and explained what had happened. I see. After a few rounds, the 2 roads will meet and have a battle. No wonder it's said to be a competition for the disciples of the Cloud Emperor Palace. I'm not surprised that Yang Liuji won, but according to what Kudong said, the beautiful woman on the 5th path actually defeated the 50 super rookies. It's really unbelievable. That's right. According to this speculation, Duan Ling will definitely lose when he meets Yang Liuji later. The 2 strangers will face each other, and the person who wins in the end will face Yang Liuji. Yang Liuji has reached the end without a doubt. I wonder which of the 2 strangers will win. We'll see. We'll have a result soon. The crowd discussed as they waited. Not long after, someone came down. It was Duan Ling. His body was staggering, and his clothes were stained with blood. Duan Ling is injured. Could it be that he fought with Yang Liuji? Think so. He's overestimating himself. He wants to fight with Yang Liuji. He's lucky to have survived. That's right. Even Yin Jiuyou, the head of the Yin Moon's 9 talents, is no match for Yang Liuji. Hey, look, that woman is coming down. Someone suddenly called out. Everyone looked at the 5th road and saw Xian Yanqing coming down. This woman is so powerful. She defeated 50 super rookies and she still lost? It seems like the other unfamiliar man is stronger. There are really crouching tigers and hidden dragons here. I wonder if that man can compete with Yang Liuji? That's impossible. That man's cultivation is too weak. He's far from the 6 extremes of Yang. That's true. Even so, everyone's eyes were still wide open as they stared at the mountain path, revealing looks of anticipation. Who would be the first one to come down? On the mountain path, after Xian Yanqing went down, Lu Ming continued to go up. There was a ball of light in front. This ball of light was actually a section of withered vine. The withered vine was only half a meter long and as thick as a finger. What is this? A withered vine? What's the use of it? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He held the withered vine and looked at it from left to right, but he could not see anything special about it. It was like an ordinary withered vine, without the slightest vitality. Forget it. I'd better keep it first. After all, he had obtained it from the ruins of the Cloud Emperor Palace. He wouldn't really give it to a withered vine, right? Perhaps it would be useful. After keeping it, Lu Ming continued to move upwards. After a while, more demonic beasts appeared. This time, 4 demonic beasts of the early 5th martial ancestor realm appeared. The 5th level of the martial arts grandmaster realm was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming's. It gave him immense pressure. Boom! Lu Ming did not hesitate to activate his blood meridian. It was not the 9-dragon bloodline that burst out, but his second bloodline. An ancient stone tablet appeared. The stone tablet was shrouded in a gray mist, making it look mysterious and unfathomable. Then the stone tablet entered Lu Ming's body and his strength increased rapidly. In the past, Lu Ming rarely activated his blood meridian. It was not that he did not want to activate it, but the duration of the activation of the 9-dragon blood meridian was too short. It only lasted for a few breaths. But now that he had awakened his second bloodline, this problem would no longer exist. At the martial arts grandmaster realm, the duration of the bloodline eruption was increased to an hour, which was enough for him to fight without restraint. Lu Ming's blood meridian exploded. He was so powerful that he charged at the 4 demonic beasts with an imposing aura. Bang! He pulled out his spear and it collided with a demonic beast. With a loud boom, a burst of energy shot out, and he and the demonic beast retreated together. Roar! The other 3 demonic beasts charged at Lu Ming again. Good! Lu Ming let out a long howl and charged forward with the demon-subduing spear in his hand. The demon-subduing spear was shrouded in the power of wind and fire. When it was waved, it was extremely fast. At the same time, it exploded with waves of heat. Its lethality was extremely shocking. Boom! Boom! The rumbling sounds continued. During this process, Lu Ming did not let the blood corpse attack. Haha! This is great! Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He was completely immersed in the battle. His fusion with the wind and fire forces had also deepened. Oh! Chapter 288. Chapter 288. Chapter 288 Battling the 6 Extreme Yang. 549690339. With the second blood meridian activated, Lu Ming felt that there was an inexhaustible amount of power in his body. Every time he struck with the spear, it was as if there was a stone tablet integrated into the spear. This made Lu Ming's every move and every form extremely terrifying. Bang! With a sweep of the spear, a demonic beast was sent flying. The 4 demonic beasts were like 4 leather balls that were constantly sent flying by Lu Ming. After about 100 moves, the 4 demonic beasts dispersed. Although these demonic beasts are not as strong as real demonic beasts, they are not that far off. It seems that if I unleash my full power now, I should be able to fight against an ordinary martial arts grandmaster 5-dan fighter. Lu Ming had a rough estimate of his own ability. After all, the difference in strength between each major realm was different. Following that, Lu Ming walked forward. There was another ball of light in front of him. This time it was a secret manual. Lu Ming flipped it open and was overjoyed. The wind and cloud mantra was an earth-grade upper-level cultivation technique. This was an earth-grade upper-level cultivation technique. Cultivation techniques were different from martial arts techniques. Cultivation techniques were the foundation of a martial artist. Only with good cultivation techniques could one continue to cultivate and break through. A good cultivation technique would allow one to cultivate faster, and the true chi that one could cultivate would be more condensed and robust. One could also cultivate to a higher realm. A cultivation technique could create a sect. For example, the mystical sword sect cultivation technique was called the mystical sword technique. An upper earth level cultivation skill was many times more precious than a martial technique of the same level. Earth grade top rank was much more precious than earth grade low rank. Lu Ming was overjoyed as he kept it. Then he continued to move upwards. Not long after, 8 demonic beasts at the peak of the 5th level of the martial ancestor realm appeared in front of Lu Ming. Roar! One of the demonic beasts roared and pounced on Lu Ming like the wind. Human Dao Palm. Lu Ming threw out a palm and the huge palm print collided with the demonic beast. Boom! Lu Ming's body trembled and he was forced to retreat by a huge force. As for the demonic beast, it only took a few steps back. The strength of a demonic beast at the peak of the 5th level of the martial arts grandmaster realm had already surpassed Lu Ming's. Blood corpse. With a thought, Lu Ming asked the golden-eyed blood zombie to take action. Lu Ming would definitely not be able to defeat 8 demonic beasts at the peak of the 5th level of the martial ancestor realm. He might as well let the blood corpse take action. Roar! The blood corpse roared and pounced forward. It waved its claws continuously, sending out claw lights. Chi-chi! The 8 demonic beasts at the peak of the 5th martial ancestor realm were torn apart by the blood corpse like rags and disappeared. Lu Ming did not find it strange. He had long discovered that the golden-eyed blood corpse was in the 7th tier of the martial ancestor realm. It was extremely powerful and could easily deal with a 5th tier martial ancestor realm demonic beast. After killing the demonic beast, Lu Ming advanced forward with ease. There was still a ball of light waiting for him in front. This time it was a wooden box. Lu Ming opened the wooden box and found a strange piece of metal lying inside. Is this the heavenly fire lava gold? After a careful identification, Lu Ming's heart trembled and he was overjoyed. The skyfire lava gold was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It was also the main material for forging a 5th grade spiritual weapon. A 5th level spiritual weapon was known as a king's spiritual weapon, and was a weapon used by martial kings. Even a martial king would be envious of such a precious metal. Haha, we're rich, we're really rich. Lu Ming laughed and kept it happily. There's an upper earth grade cultivation technique and a heavenly fire lava gold. I'm really looking forward to what's next. Lu Ming was filled with anticipation. Carrying the blood corpse, he continued to move upwards. In front of him, a figure stood there with his hands behind his back. Young Six Extremes. The last 2 paths had finally converged. Lu Ming and Yang Liuji had finally met. I didn't expect that someone could really walk up here. Seems that you have some skills. Now I'll give you a chance. Go back the way you came and I can spare your life. Yang Liuji put his hands behind his back and looked down at Lu Ming, his tone extremely overbearing. Who do you think you are? I'll return these words to you. Fuck off or you'll be the one to die. Lu Ming sneered. Yang Liuji's face instantly darkened as he said in a low voice, I promise you that you will regret what you said. His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. Lu Ming smiled faintly and walked up the stairs unhurriedly, step by step. When Lu Ming approached the intersection of the 2 paths, demonic beasts began to form at that spot. There were 16 of them in total, and each of them was emitting a terrifying aura. The 16 demonic beasts were all in the early stage of the martial ancestor realm level 6. When they gathered together, their aura was extremely terrifying. Roar! The 16 demonic beasts roared and pounced at Yang Liuji. Die! Yang Liuji coldly shouted and threw a punch. A sun appeared in the sky, and a terrifyingly hot energy exploded. The demonic beasts exploded one after another, turning into a rain of light and dissipating. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The geniuses on the Cloud Emperor ranking were indeed powerful and terrifying. A demonic beast in the early stage of the martial ancestor 6th realm was completely crushed. Bang! Bang! Like fireworks, the 16 beasts exploded in the air one after another, creating a rain of light. Now, you know the difference between you and me. But it's too late to leave now. After Yang Liuji killed the 16 demonic beasts, he glared at Lu Ming and strode toward him. Who said I'm leaving? You're so full of yourself. Let's talk after you defeat my pet. Lu Ming sneered and waved his hand. Roar! The blood corpse roared and pounced forward. What is this? When Yang Liuji saw the golden-eyed blood corpse's true appearance, his eyes narrowed and he punched out. The fist energy condensed into a sun and shot towards the golden-eyed blood corpse. Boom! The burning fist force collided with the golden-eyed blood corpse's claw radiance. The energy wreaked havoc in all directions, while the golden-eyed blood corpse and Yang Liuji both trembled and were forced back 7 to 8 steps. Haha! Looks like you're nothing much after all. You can't even beat one of my pets. Lu Ming laughed out loud. However, he was secretly shocked. Yang Liuji's cultivation should be at the early stage of the 5th martial ancestor realm, but his combat strength couldn't be judged by his cultivation. He could at least fight 2 levels above him. Go to hell! And NBSP. Yang Liuji was shaken, his eyes bursting with endless rage. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and a scorching aura filled the air. The force of fire. Moreover, the force of fire was extremely strong and stronger than Lu Ming's. This 6 extreme Yang's fire force is probably about to reach perfection. Lu Ming was a little surprised. Divine Sun Fist. Yang Liuji roared, his entire body emitting a bright light like a sun. Boom! Boom! He punched out a few times in a row, and each punch was accompanied by a sun. The sun shot towards the golden-eyed blood corpse. The golden-eyed blood zombie roared and its body was covered in a thick blood-red light. It reached out with its claws, which were extremely sharp and seemed to be able to tear the space apart. Bang! Bang! Continuous crashing sounds rang out, and the rumbles continued. The scene was extremely shocking. It was as if suns were being extinguished in the sky one after another, like a scene from the end of the world. The golden-eyed blood corpse roared. It was not afraid of death and its body was impervious to swords and spears. Although it was in the 7th level of the martial ancestor realm, its combat strength was not something that an ordinary 7th level martial ancestor realm could compare to. After dozens of moves, the golden-eyed blood corpse started to gain the upper hand. Oh! Chapter 289. Chapter 289. 10,000 Spiritual Combat Body. 549690339. Detestable. Yang Liuji roared in his heart and attacked even more violently, but it was useless. The golden-eyed blood corpse's body was not as strong as swords or spears, and was impervious to fire or water. It didn't even feel Yang Liuji's hot fist energy when it landed on its body. On the other hand, Yang Liuji had to avoid the golden-eyed blood corpse's claw radiance. If he was not careful, he could be torn apart. Buzz! After a dozen more moves, the golden-eyed blood corpse's claw landed on Yang Liuji's body. Yang Liuji dodged in shock, but he was still left with several wounds and blood. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse roared and pounced towards Yang Liuji. Yang Liuji's expression was extremely ugly. Damn it, kid. One day, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. Yang Liuji let out a long furious roar, then ran down the mountain. Take care, I won't send you off. Lu Ming waved his hands and said with a smile. This almost made Yang Liuji fall to the ground. He was so angry that his body trembled and he almost spat out blood. In the blink of an eye, Yang Liuji disappeared. At the foot of the mountain, more than 1,000 people were waiting quietly. Who would come down first? Everyone was thinking about the same question. Perhaps that kid will never be able to come down. Some people sneered and felt that Lu Ming would most likely die at the hands of Yang Liuji. Detestable guy, you can't die in the hands of Yang Liuji, Xian Yanqing muttered. Although she knew that Lu Ming had the golden-eyed blood corpse with him, she was not confident. At this time, she could not help but reveal a worried look in her eyes. Even she did not notice it. Someone's coming down. Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out. Many people were shocked and couldn't help but look at the 8th path. There was no one on the 8th route. Everyone's heart trembled as they looked at the first path. Yang Liuji, covered in blood, came down from the first path with a gloomy expression. Whoosh! The crowd burst into an uproar. More than 1,000 people were dumbfounded. The first to come down was Yang Liuji, and he was injured. Did he lose or win? Everyone was guessing that perhaps Yang Liuji had already killed Lu Ming and obtained the final reward. However, Yang Liuji's next performance made everyone know that he had most likely lost. He stood at the foot of the mountain and looked up at the peak with a cold expression. This expression was obviously a defeat. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Yang Liuji had been defeated. Who was this person? On the mountain path, Lu Ming did not know about this. After watching Yang Liuji leave, Lu Ming turned and walked up. Up ahead, the road had already come to an end. At the end of the road there was a bright ball of light. A secret manual was floating in the ball of light. Another secret manual. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He had already obtained an upper earth grade cultivation technique, and now a secret manual had appeared. Could it be a heaven grade secret manual? Lu Ming's heart started to burn. Stretching out his hand, He drew in his zhenqi and the manual fell into his palm. The surface of the secret manual was covered with wisps of blood, which was extremely strange. He opened the manual and took a look. The 10,000 spiritual combat body was a body refining technique that could allow one to cultivate a 9th grade body at most. Lu Ming's heart trembled violently. Then he was overjoyed. It was actually a body refining cultivation method, and it could cultivate a 9th grade body. This was simply a priceless treasure, even more precious than heaven-level martial skills. Haha, I was just looking for a body refining technique. Lu Ming laughed heartily. Then he started to read it impatiently. However, he had only read a few pages when heaven and earth suddenly shook. What's going on? Lu Ming's expression changed. Buzz! All of a sudden, a beam of light enveloped Lu Ming. He felt the world spinning around him and then disappeared from the mountain path. At the same time, pillars of light appeared at the foot of the mountain and enveloped everyone. Not only the foot of the mountain, but the rest of the young men in the ruins of the Cloud Emperor Palace were also covered by the light pillar. After being enveloped by the light pillar, the figure disappeared the next moment. A moment later, outside the Cloud Emperor Palace, in the vast mountains near the Blood Realm and Devil's Den, light pillars suddenly appeared. The light pillars dispersed, revealing the figure inside. They were all the young men who had entered the Yun Emperor Palace. He's out. Let's ask about the situation. Let's see if there are any treasures inside. In the vast mountains, the elders all called out. Lu Ming felt his head spinning. When he reappeared, he found himself between two mountains. The golden-eyed blood corpse also came out and stood beside him. In the sky, human figures were flying here and there. Little bastard, get out and face your death. Suddenly, a loud roar reverberated through the vast mountains. It was Yang Liuji. He stood high in the sky with a cold killing intent. What's going on? Who does Yang Liuji want to kill? Many of the older generation were puzzled. After asking the other young men, he found out that Yang Liuji had suffered a great loss in the ruins of the Cloud Emperor Palace. The elders were shocked. They didn't think that with Yang Liuji's cultivation, he would actually suffer a great loss at the hands of someone from the younger generation. And NBSP, damn it, he actually dared to take a treasure from the hands of the great Sun Sect's genius. Damn it. Find that bastard and let him know the consequences of offending our great Sun House. And NBSP, some of the older generation of the Great Sun Prefecture shouted, their auras like mountains. A bunch of idiots. In the forest, Lu Ming's mouth twitched in disdain. Then, he and the golden-eyed blood corpse ran in the direction of the Blood Realm and Devil's Cave. He had made an agreement with Xian Yanqing to rush to the Blood Zone and Devil's Cave as soon as he came out. He wanted to go back to the Blazing Sun Empire through the Blood and Devil's Den, because if he wanted to go around the Blood and Devil's Den, the journey would be more than 10 times longer. And NBSP, those from the Great Sun Prefecture had never seen him before, so how could they find him? Lu Ming successfully crossed the mountain and arrived near the Blood Realm and Devil's Cave. In front of him, a dark red mist filled the air, making everything hazy. A graceful figure was standing there. Xian Yanqing had arrived. Let's go in. Let's go, Lu Ming shouted. He led the golden-eyed blood corpse and rushed in without hesitation. Xian Yanqing followed closely behind. The next moment, Lu Ming and the rest appeared in the Blood Realm. He looked around, but he didn't see the stone door from last time. Lu Ming took out the demon-suppressing token, which glowed. Not long after, a deafening roar was heard. The tall figure of the blood demon dashed out from the blood mist. Roar! The golden-eyed blood corpse roared. All the green hair on its body stood on end, and it stood in front of Lu Ming. It looked at the blood demon that was running toward it with fear in its eyes. Bang! The blood demon stopped not far away, causing a gust of wind as he looked at the golden-eyed blood corpse with disdain. All right, I'm fine. Lu Ming smiled and sent a thought to the golden-eyed blood zombie to let it relax. The golden-eyed blood corpse finally relaxed. Let's go up. Lu Ming smiled and jumped onto the back of the blood demon. Then Xian Yanqing and the golden-eyed blood corpse jumped onto the back of the blood demon. The blood demon roared and ran away. This direction was the opposite of the Blood Zhao Empire, so it should be the direction to the Burning Sun Empire. Oh. Chapter 290. Chapter 290. Exploded with a few punches. 549690339. Little Qing, there's something I need to tell you. On the blood demon's back, Lu Ming suddenly said to Xian Yanqing. What is it? Xian Yanqing said coldly. Although she hated Lu Ming for calling her Shaoqing, she had already tacitly agreed. I've seen your sister before, Lu Ming said. What? Xian Yanqing's pupils suddenly shrank, and a trace of hatred and determination flashed in his eyes. What did she say to you? Xian Yanqing stared at Lu Ming and asked. She told me to pass you a message. She told you not to keep thinking about surpassing her, because that's a waste of time and it's impossible. Lu Ming relayed Xian Yinjuan's words to Xian Yanqing. As expected, you're still so self-righteous. After hearing this, Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth and said with determination, Isn't it just an innate king-level bloodline? What's so great about her? One day I'm going to step on her. Upon hearing this, Lu Ming could not help but touch his nose. This chick really liked to trample on others. At the same time, he was secretly shocked. From what Xian Yanqing said, Xian Yanjuan actually had a natural king-level bloodline. That was terrifying. The meaning of innate king-class bloodline was that the first bloodline awakened was a king-class bloodline. Without a doubt, this kind of person was a rare monster with a terrifying talent. No wonder Xian Yanjuan was so powerful. With his 6th grade Grandmaster realm cultivation, he was able to injure a martial Grandmaster from the Shadow Wolf Pavilion with just an inscription formation. Lu Ming even suspected that Xian Yanjuan had not used his full strength at that time. What kind of sisters are they? What's their background? His talent was actually so amazing. They don't seem to get along? Lu Ming was secretly curious. However, since Xian Yanqing didn't say anything, he didn't ask. On the back of the blood demon, there was silence as they continued on their way to the Burning Sun Empire. Blazing Sun Empire, outside the Blood Realm in Devil's Denver. 4 figures were standing guard there. These 4 people were the ones who Cho Chongkong had asked him to guard this place. How fucking unlucky. It's all because of those 2 little bastards. They made me stay in this godforsaken place. It's been more than 10 days. I think those 2 little bastards must have died in there. A burly man cursed unhappily. Although we'll definitely die if we enter the blood domain in Devil's Den, young Master Chongkong is just being cautious. Let's guard here for another month. If there's still no movement after a month, we'll leave. A white-haired old man said. He had the highest cultivation among the 4 of them, reaching the 4th level of martial ancestor realm. Humph, I really hope those 2 little bastards didn't die. If that's the case, I'll make them regret being born into this world. The burly large man sinisterly said. However, the next moment, his pupils suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. The other 3 were in a similar situation. In the Blood Realm in Devil's Cave, a bloody mist rolled out, and 3 figures walked out from the bloody mist. If it was not Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, who else could it be? After more than a day's journey, the blood demon finally carried them to the border of the Burning Sun Empire's blood zone in Devil's Cave. There was no stone door here. Instead, there was a door of light. After stepping through the door of light, one would naturally leave the blood realm in Devil's Cave. However, the blood demons couldn't leave with them, but the golden-eyed blood zombies could. The golden-eyed blood zombies didn't belong to the blood zone. To Lu Ming's surprise, as soon as he left the blood realm in Devil's Den, he ran into the people from the omnipresent sword sect. Ha ha. These 2 little bastards are really not dead? Fine, I'll take them down and torture them. I'll make them tell me the secret of why they didn't die after entering the blood realm in Devil's Den. The burly man laughed, his eyes filled with coldness. The aura of a 2nd-grade martial arts grandmaster exploded from his body and pressed down on Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. You want to know? All right, come here, I'll throw you in and you'll know. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Oh, you're on the verge of death and you're still trying to win with your words. You're really stupid. Kneel down. The burly man strode forward and pressed his palm toward Lu Ming. Although Lu Ming's combat strength was not bad, he was at the second level of the martial arts Grandmaster realm. He was confident that he could suppress Lu Ming with a single palm. However, the result was completely beyond his expectations. Lu Ming stretched out his hand casually and grabbed his palm. At the same time, an extremely strong genuine qi gushed toward his palm. With a destructive force, it crushed his genuine qi and gushed into his arm. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking came from his palm. Then the muscles of his arm exploded, and the bones broke into pieces. The burly man screamed like a pig being slaughtered. He was in so much pain that tears were flowing out. Bang! Lu Ming's kick landed on the burly man's dantian, shattering the cyclone in his dantian and crippling his cultivation. The burly man let out a desperate scream. That's fucking unpleasant to hear. Didn't you want to know why I didn't die after entering the Blood Realm and Devil's Den? You can go in and take a look yourself. With that, Lu Ming swung his arm and threw the burly man into the Blood Realm. Don't! The burly man shouted in despair, but in the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared. How dare you? You're looking for death. At this time, the remaining 3 people from the 10 Direction Sword School finally reacted. They all shouted, and their eyes revealed shock and disbelief. The burly man's strength was at the second tier of the martial arts Grandmaster realm, but he was completely helpless against Lu Ming. It had only been a short 10 days. How did Lu Ming become so strong? You're the ones who will die today. The 10 Direction Sword Sect will start with you. Let's collect some interest first. Lu Ming's gaze was cold as he strode toward the remaining 3 people. Presumptuous, you little bastard. Don't think that you can be impudent in front of me just because you killed a second-level martial ancestor. I'll let you know that the difference between a second-level and a fourth-level martial ancestor is like heaven and earth. The white-haired elder howled as his bloodline exploded, raising his strength to the maximum. Whoosh! He swung his sword, and a vast sword chi slashed toward Lu Ming. Is that so? Lu Ming sneered and threw a punch. Boom! A terrifying fist radiance burst out from Lu Ming's fist, tearing through the void and crashing into the vast sword chi. Bang! The sword chi instantly dispersed, but the remaining fist radiance didn't slow down and landed on the old man. The old man let out a blood-curdling screech and spat out a large mouthful of blood. His body was sent flying back 1,000 meters. How can he be so strong? This man is invincible. I have to run away and report this to young Master Chong Kong. The white-haired old man revealed a look of disbelief and turned to run. When the other 2 saw that Lu Ming had sent the white-haired old man flying with one punch, they were scared out of their wits. They turned around and flew into the distance. You want to leave? How is that possible? Die! Lu Ming shouted coldly and threw 2 consecutive punches. Boom! Boom! 2 fist radiances streaked across the sky and headed towards the 2 people. The 2 of them were only in the first tier of the martial ancestor realm and could not resist at all. 2 screams rang out and the 2 of them were directly blown up in the air. Then Lu Ming stepped on the void and chased after the old man. In just a few breaths, he had caught up to the old man. The old man roared and fought back desperately, but it was useless. He was blown up by Lu Ming's punch. Oh! Chapter 291. Chapter 291. Don't talk nonsense. 549690339. Lu Ming activated the 9-dragon bloodline and devoured the white-haired elder's blood essence. Then in a flash, Lu Ming took away the storage rings of the others. At the same time, he also devoured all the blood essence. The 4 Grandmaster-level powerhouses of the Omnidirectional Sword School were killed by Lu Ming in such a short time. Cho Chong Kong probably did not even dream of this. Let's go. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Together with Xian Yinqing and the golden-eyed blood zombie, they soared into the sky and turned into a rainbow light, flying rapidly towards the imperial capital. As he flew, Lu Ming refined the blood essence. Let's see if my second bloodline can increase its level by devouring essence blood. With a single thought, Lu Ming transferred all the energy refined from the 9-dragon bloodline to his second bloodline. Instantly, the second bloodline devoured the energy in a frenzy. Lu Ming could feel that the three Asilavira chakras were shining, and the strength of the second bloodline was increasing. It's really useful. The grade of my second bloodline can also be improved. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Heaven-defying, this was too heaven-defying. The 9-dragon bloodline could actually devour blood essence and upgrade the level of other bloodlines. This was too shocking. The level of his bloodline was not important anymore. What was important was that as long as he could devour the blood essence, his bloodline could be improved infinitely. Lu Ming immediately transferred the remaining energy essence to the second bloodline. The combined energy of 2 Martial Grandmaster 1 Dan, 1 Martial Grandmaster 2 Dan, and 1 Martial Grandmaster 4 Dan was too strong. If the 9-dragon bloodline devoured it, it would probably level up instantly, which would attract Xian Yanqing's attention. The bloodline of the 9 dragons could not be exposed. However, although the blood essence was strong, it was still a drop in the bucket for the second bloodline. It was difficult for the second bloodline to level up. The amount of energy essence required for a third-level king bloodline to level up was extremely terrifying. Xian Yanqing seemed to sense that Lu Ming was a little strange, but he only took a casual glance and did not pay much attention to it. The two of them rushed to the imperial capital at full speed. With the two's current cultivation, their speed was much faster than before as they flew through the air. In just slightly more than half a day, the imperial capital was already in sight. Oh! The two of them returned to the imperial capital and rushed to the General Star Hall as fast as lightning. Previously, Lu Ming had already learned through the 1,000-mile sound transmission talisman that Lu Yuntian had returned to the imperial capital safely and was in the General Star's hall. Lu Ming could not wait to see Lu Yuntian. "Tianyun, you really did appear." Just as Lu Ming and the group were about to reach the General Star's hall, a loud shout was heard. The sound of the air being torn apart could be heard as 2 young men appeared in front of Lu Ming. "So it's you guys. You're really patient. You've been guarding this place like dogs. Thank you for your hard work." Lu Ming sneered as he looked at the 2 young men with a mocking smile. These 2 young men were the genius disciples from the 10 Directions Sword School, who had charged into the General Star Hall to kill Lu Ming. They had declared that they would stop Lu Ming outside the General Star Hall. He did not expect that the 2 of them would still be here after so many days. "What did you just say? You're looking for death." The 2 young men were furious, and 2 powerful auras rushed out of their bodies. The aura of a peak second-level martial ancestor realm expert was like a mountain. The people nearby were all alarmed. What's going on? What's happening?" "Those are the 2 golden disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School. The other side is Tianyun." "I know. Half a month ago, 2 disciples from the 10 Directions Sword School charged into the General Star Hall, wanting to kill Tianyun. In the end, they failed and were stopped by the elders of the General Star Hall and the experts of the royal family. In the end, the disciples of the 10 Directions Sword School declared that they would kill Tianyun outside the General Star Hall." "There's actually such a thing? Now that Tianyun has left the General Star Hall, he's finished. The experts of the General Star Hall will have no reason to interfere. Tianyun is in danger." Countless people in the surroundings were attracted by the commotion and gathered around, discussing spiritedly. "Tianyun, you shouldn't have said those words. Ever since you said those words, your tragic ending has already been determined. Today, I'll let you know what pain is, what it means to be unable to die." One of the disciples from the 10 Directions Sword Sect had an extremely gloomy expression. Killing intent burst out from his body, and it was as if it had materialized. Lu Ming actually dared to call them dogs. Damn it, this was definitely 1,000 times worse. Who were they? The golden disciples of the 10 Directions Sword Sect, the proud sons of heaven, had always been pampered. When had anyone dared to say this about them? Don't fucking babble. If you want to fight, then do it. If you don't, then get lost. Get as far away as you can. Lu Ming berated. The surrounding spectators were all stunned. This Tianyun was too overbearing, wasn't he? He actually dared to berate the geniuses of the 10 Directions Sword School like this. These were a few young grandmasters. They were incomparably powerful, and many of the older generation had to be extremely respectful in front of them. Where did Tianyun get his confidence from? I think Tianyun is going all out. He knows that he's going to die, so why don't he just curse to his heart's content? Think so too. It must be so. The surrounding people were discussing. Kill, kill, kill. Tianyun, I'm going to kill you and feed your corpse to the dogs. A young man from the 10 Directions sword sect shouted. He couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. Buzz. The combat sword trembled and a terrifying sword ray, sparkling and dazzling, was slashed at Lu Ming. Retreat, quickly retreat. The others in the surroundings were extremely shocked and quickly retreated. This sword was too terrifying. If they were swept by the aftermath, they would either die or be injured. However, Lu Ming's body was as tall as a mountain. He stood there not moving. Beside him, Xian Yanqing and the golden-eyed blood corpse were also standing there motionless, as if they didn't see anything. Dumbfounded. Tianyun and the others have been scared silly. Many people roared in their hearts and came to this conclusion. The sword gleam was about to slash down on Lu Ming's head. At this moment, Lu Ming stretched out his palm. His palm glowed and a long spear condensed. Boom! The sword gleam slashed at the long spear that Lu Ming had condensed and a deafening boom was heard. Then, everyone saw that Lu Ming's body did not move at all. His clothes did not even flutter. He used the long spear condensed from essential qi in his hand to block the sword gleam steadily. The crowd was dumbfounded. He blocked it. How could Lu Ming block the sword of the youth from the omnidirectional sword sect so easily? Could it be that the young man from the 10 Directions sword sect had not used his full strength? The eyes of the youth from the 10 Directions sword sect almost popped out, and his heart was in turmoil. Others might not know, but he knew very well that he had used all his strength in that sword attack. Previously, Lu Ming had been forced to flee in a sorry state under this sword attack. He did not even have the strength to fight back. How much time had passed? How was it possible that Lu Ming could easily block his sword? This is your strength? You haven't changed at all, you're just making progress on the spot. How disappointing. Lu Ming spoke in a slightly mocking tone. Then Lu Ming's long spear trembled. The body of the spear shook and a terrifying force exploded. Ah! The young man from the 10 Directions sword school let out a blood-curdling screech as his body flew out like a cannonball. He crashed through more than 10 walls before he could stabilize himself, but blood spurted out of his mouth. Oh! Chapter 292. Chapter 292. Challenging Qiu Chonglai. 549690339. Sisigu. Gasps of shock could be heard. Everyone looked at Lu Ming in shock. This was too strong, the gap was too big. The gold disciple of the 10 Directions sword school couldn't resist at all and was easily suppressed. Previously, those who thought that Lu Ming was dead for sure felt their faces burning. Lu Ming was not scared out of his wits. He was not courting death. He had the confidence in the ability. Die! The long spear condensed from essential qi in Lu Ming's hands turned into a flash of lightning and shot out like an arrow. The long spear pierced through the chest of the youth from the 10 Directions sword school, killing him. Run! The remaining young man was scared out of his wits as he frantically fled into the distance. Who told you that you can walk? Let's go and accompany your companions. A cold voice came out of Lu Ming's mouth. Then a long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. The long spear pierced through the void and pierced towards the other party. Break! The other party roared and used all his strength to slash out with his sword. A mighty sword qi slashed at Lu Ming's long spear. However, with a splat, the sword qi was pierced through by the long spear. The long spear did not stop, it was as fast as lightning. No! The youth from the 10 Directions sword school shouted. Stop! An earth-shattering shout suddenly came from the distance. But it was too late. The chest of the youth from the 10 Directions sword school was pierced through by the spear, and a huge hole was blasted open. His body fell to the ground, and his blood scattered in the air. Buzz! At this time a violent air-piercing sound was heard, and a figure appeared in the sky. This figure was also a young man in his 20s. Qiu Chonglai. It's Qiu Chonglai. someone exclaimed when they saw the young man. Qiu Zhonglia's name had shaken the entire Blazing Sun Empire during this period of time. It was because he had defeated one of the 6 heroes, Ling Yanqi, not too long ago that he had become unparalleled in the limelight. Some people had already spread the rumor of the 7 heroes of the Scorching Sun because of him. Qiu Zhonglia's face darkened. He glared at Lu Ming and said, "You're Tianyun? You actually dared to kill a genius of my 10-direction sword school. Do you know how big of a crime you've committed? Do you know that this is a great crime that will result in the extermination of 9 generations of your family?" Laughable. Lu Ming smiled faintly and said, "They've tried to kill me several times, so I can't kill them? I don't care if you're from the 10-direction sword sect or the 9-direction sword sect. Anyone who dares to offend me will be killed. Kill. Kill. Kill." The 3 words resounded in the air. They were filled with killing intent and sent chills down one's spine. "How dare you? You're looking down on the 10-direction sword school. You must be beheaded." Qiu Chonglai shouted as a beam of sword chi shot out of his body and into the sky. "Cut your sister. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Now I'm officially challenging you." Lu Ming howled madly, his voice rumbling and spreading in all directions. Everyone was stunned. Tianyun actually wanted to challenge Qiu Chonglai? Was he crazy? Although he had displayed incredible combat strength, and the 2 martial ancestor realm 2 Dan youths were unable to resist him, he was still a powerful man. However, no one believed that he was a match for Qiu Chonglai. Qiu Chonglai was a peerless genius secretly nurtured by the 10-direction sword school. Once he was born, he defeated Ling Yanqi, one of the 6 heroes of the Burning Sun Empire. He was extremely powerful and could be said to be standing at the peak of the younger generation of the Burning Sun Empire. How long had it been since Tianyun rose to power? Not long ago, he was only at the Great Martial Master realm. How could he be Qiu Chonglia's match? "Tianyun, you can't." At this moment, a long howl came from the distance, and a few figures rushed over. It was Hua Qi and a few elders from the imperial family. The elders and Hua Qi quickly arrived. "Tianyun, don't be rash. This is the imperial capital. Let's see what Qiu Chonglai can do to you." Hua Qi called out. It was not that he did not trust Lu Ming. On the contrary, he trusted Lu Ming very much. He believed that it was very possible that Lu Ming would surpass the 6 Scorching Sun heroes in a year or 2. However, he did not believe that Lu Ming could defeat Qiu Chonglai. It was too unbelievable. "Hua Qi, what are you doing? Don't think that you can stop me just because you're some bullshit prince. If you anger me, I'll kill you as well. Now get out of my way." Qiu Chonglai looked at Hua Qi and chided. From his tone, he did not put Hua Qi in his eyes at all. "How dare you disrespect the 8th prince?" An old man shouted from the edge of the pool. "Old thing, what are you shouting for? So what if I'm disrespectful? What can you do to me? Let me tell you, today Tianyun killed a gold-ranked disciple of our 10-direction sword sect. His crime is unforgivable, and no one can save him." Qiu Chonglai was extremely arrogant as he glared at Hua Qi and the others. Hua Qi and the other elders had ugly expressions. "Hey, are you done with your nonsense? I challenged you just now. If you don't fucking dare to accept the challenge, just say it. Don't try to change the topic here and talk nonsense." Lu Ming shouted. Everyone was stunned. Qiu Chonglai was arrogant, but this Tianyun was even more arrogant and savage than Qiu Chonglai. "You fuck." Qiu Chonglia's face turned ashen, and he almost vomited blood. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down and said coldly, "Fine, I agree to fight you. It's a life-and-death battle. No outsiders are allowed to interfere." "Good, that's just what I want. I'm really afraid that if I accidentally kill you, the old man from the 10-direction sword school will come to me for revenge." Lu Ming said loudly. "Ha ha ha, Tianyun, what do you think the 10-direction sword school is? Don't worry, if you really can kill me, it'll be because my cultivation is not enough. My 10-direction sword sect will not pursue this matter. But let me tell you, it's impossible for you to kill me. I'll let you know what despair is." Qiu Chonglai laughed with confidence. His voice spread far and wide and everyone heard it. "All right, then let's fight." Lu Ming let out a long howl. He took a step forward and appeared in the air, standing opposite Qiu Chonglai. Lu Ming has broken through to the martial ancestor realm. Seeing this, Hua Qi's mind stirred. A hint of surprise appeared in his eyes, followed by a hint of joy. He understood Lu Ming very well. Lu Ming would never fight a battle that he was not confident in. Buzz! With a wave of his hand, a huge combat sword flew out and hovered above Qiu Chonglia's head. A terrifying sword chi spread out in all directions, covering half the sky. Die! Qiu Chonglai bellowed. His sword trembled and turned into a terrifying sword ray that slashed toward Lu Ming. The sword chi was fused with an incomparably powerful force. The momentum of the mountain that had reached the great completion, caused the attack power of the sword ray to reach its peak. The two golden disciples from the 10 Directions Sword School were trash compared to him. There was no way to compare them. The sword light slashed down, terrifying and shocking. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. The demon-subduing spear appeared in his hand, and he thrust the spear forward. The true qi in his body continuously gathered at the tip of the spear. At the same time, the power of wind and fire also gathered and compressed at the tip of the spear. This was the 6th move of the fire gun art, explosion. However, Lu Ming had modified it to merge the wind and fire forces. The power of wind and fire had been condensed to the extreme, but it was still not completely fused. However, its power was already very shocking. Explode! Go! Lu Ming shouted. A terrifying force suddenly burst out from the tip of the spear. Oh! The two forces met in the air. Oh! Chapter 293. Chapter 293 Fusion of Wind and Fire. 549690339. Boom! Heaven and earth shook violently as if a sun had exploded in the sky. Terrifying waves swept in all directions. From the ground, one could see that a visible wave of air exploded from the point where the two met in the air. It spread out rapidly and covered the entire imperial city in an instant. At that moment, all the powerful cultivators in the imperial capital were shocked. They looked at the place where Lu Ming and Qiu Chonglai were fighting. Boom! After the earth-shaking tremor, the two figures quickly retreated, each retreating 1,000 meters. They were evenly matched. Whoosh! In an instant, the entire place burst into an uproar. Lu Ming was actually able to fight Qiu Chonglai head-on, and they were even. How is that possible? How is this possible? Tell me, am I blind? What I just saw wasn't real. You're blind, but I'm not. I saw it too. My God, Tianyun was only a martial grandmaster half a month ago. It's only been half a month, and he's already able to fight Qiu Chonglai. Isn't this a little too crazy? I've lived my life in vain. Everyone's nerves seemed to be in a mess as they screamed randomly to vent the shock in their hearts. It was simply too shocking. This guy. Hua Qi was tongue-tied and almost couldn't speak. Beside him, the few elders of the imperial family were also dumbfounded. Damn it! Tianyun, you deserve to die. Qiu Chonglai roared. Qiu Chonglai was a genius, but he had been in hiding for more than 20 years. His goal was to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and break through the clouds. In the end, he did it. With a single move, he defeated one of the 6 heroes, Ling Yanqi. His name shook the world and his glory was boundless. He enjoyed this kind of glory incomparably. He had a kind of ambition. He wanted to climb all the way up and trample all the other geniuses under his feet. He might even be able to replace Qiu Chongkong. However, to think that he would actually be stopped by an ant like Tianyun, this caused his reputation to be somewhat imperfect. Unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable. Boom! Qiu Chonglia's body flashed with a blood-red light as a ferocious tiger charged out. This ferocious tiger had a pair of wings on its back, and its aura soared into the sky. Around the tiger there was a dazzling Esilavira chakra. King-level first-class bloodline. Tianyun, I have a king-tier bloodline, and I'm a natural-born king. Why don't you die? Qiu Chonglai bellowed. His aura was incomparably powerful as he slashed his sword toward Lu Ming again. Natural king. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. His body shook and a blood-red light shot out. Then a huge stone tablet emerged. The 3 Asilavira chakras on the stone tablet were so bright that they almost blinded the others. Oh heavens, oh earth, what am I seeing? 3 Asilavira chakra? A 3rd level royal bloodline. It's actually a 3rd level royal bloodline? How is that possible? Monster, he's a real monster. The crowd's mood that had finally calmed down was turned upside down again. Everyone let out a roar of disbelief. Hua Qi's dumbfounded expression turned into a bitter smile. He had tried his best to overestimate Lu Ming. However, he realized that he was wrong every time. He had always underestimated Lu Ming. No, this is impossible. Qiu Chonglia's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he shrieked in disbelief. Boom! Lu Ming waved his long spear and blocked Qiu Chonglia's sword gleam. He then looked at Qiu Chonglai with a cold smile and said, "What's impossible? It's just a 3rd level king bloodline. How big of a deal is that? What was there to be surprised about? You're just a frog at the bottom of a well." There was a 7th tier king level bloodline genius standing next to him. Lu Ming did not think that a 3rd level king level bloodline was a big deal. Kill, so what if it's a 3rd level king class bloodline? You'll still die today. Qiu Chonglai roared. He was so jealous that he was about to go crazy. In his heart, Tianyun was just like an ant. He had actually awakened a 3rd level king bloodline, which was 2 levels higher than him. This was unforgivable. He must kill Lu Ming. He could not allow Lu Ming to live in this world. Just now, he was still feeling smug and self-proclaimed to be a natural-born king, looking down on Lu Ming. However, in the blink of an eye, Lu Ming erupted with a 3rd level king level blood meridian. His blood meridian was trash compared to Lu Ming's. This was like a slap to his own face. This made his killing intent towards Lu Ming even stronger. Buzz! Qiu Chonglia's sword trembled as he charged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's spear trembled as he charged toward Qiu Chonglai. Boom! Boom! The two of them were engaged in an intense battle. One had to admit that Qiu Chonglai was indeed extremely powerful, far more powerful than the other young experts of his generation. He was at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm. His force had reached the phenomenal success stage, and he had also cultivated a low earth grade martial skill to the 4th stage. The cultivation technique he practiced should be a low earth level cultivation technique. With the 1st class king bloodline, he could kill a peak 4th level martial ancestor realm martial artist with one move, let alone a martial artist of the same level as him. He could cross 2 levels and fight with a peak 5th level martial ancestor realm martial artist. It was not easy for Lu Ming to win since his cultivation level was more than a level lower. Moreover, Lu Ming did not use any earth-level martial arts technique. He wanted to use the power of wind and fire to fight against Qiu Chonglai. He wanted to use Qiu Chonglia's hands to temper the power of wind and fire so that the power of wind and fire could be completely fused as soon as possible. Boom! In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had passed and Lu Ming was gradually at a disadvantage. After all, he didn't use an earth-rank martial skill, so he suffered a great loss in this aspect. Tianyun is going to be defeated. Seems like Qiu Chonglai is still stronger. However, for Tianyun to be able to fight Qiu Chonglai to this extent, it's already extremely terrifying. With Tianyun's bloodline, he might be able to surpass Qiu Chonglai in time. The people watching the battle couldn't help but express their opinions. In the crowd, Hua Qi had a worried expression. Elders, if Tianyun is no match for you later on, you must save Tianyun no matter what price you have to pay. Hua Qi secretly sent a message to the imperial family elders. 8th Prince, don't worry. We will protect young Master Tianyun even if it means our lives. A few imperial family elders said. Only then did Hua Qi relax a little and continue to watch the battle. Haha, Tianyun, go to hell. Qiu Chonglai let out a long howl. His aura was like a rainbow. Dazzling sword qi continued to burst out, determined to kill Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming turned a deaf ear to everything in the outside world. He was completely immersed in his own world, in the world of wind and fire. Soon, just a little bit more and the wind and fire will be completely fused together. Just a little bit more. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He waved the long spear in his hand at an increasing speed. The space was filled with spear shadows. Moreover, each spear shadow was more powerful than the last. In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had been exchanged. All of a sudden, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He felt that the wind and fire had reached a point. When they reached this point, the wind and fire had completely fused together. I've succeeded. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Buzz! Lu Ming's long spear shook. The power of wind and fire combined and exploded into a terrifying wave, destroying Qiu Changlia's sword radiance. Whoosh! Then the long spear shook and stabbed out like a real dragon. The power of wind and fire fused together and exploded. Bang! Qiu Changlai let out a blood-curdling screech as his body was sent flying several thousand meters away. Oh! Chapter 294. Chapter 294. Chapter 294 Overbearing Killing. 549690339. How did this happen? Qiu Changlai stood thousands of meters in the sky, spitting out a large mouthful of blood as he let out a roar of disbelief. The countless spectators were also in disbelief. What was going on? Qiu Changlai had clearly gained the upper hand earlier, and victory was only a matter of time. Why did Tianyun suddenly unleash his full power and send Qiu Changlai flying with a single strike, severely injuring him? Could it be that Tianyun had been hiding his strength all along? Haha, Qiu Changlai, thank you. Thank you for sparring with me just now, allowing me to cultivate a martial skill. Lu Ming laughed heartily. What? The countless spectators looked at each other, and then came to a realization. Lu Ming had actually borrowed Qiu Changlia's help to cultivate a unique skill. The crowd was speechless. Lu Ming was actually using Qiu Changlai to cultivate. It was crazy. The craziest thing was that he had actually succeeded. Ah, Tianyun. Qiu Changlai howled into the sky and spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. These few mouthfuls of blood were completely from anger. This was an insult. This was an insult. Qiu Changlai felt as if his anger was about to burst out of his chest. What are you screaming for? It's your honor to be able to let me use you to cultivate. Lu Ming stepped in the air and chided indifferently. Wasn't Qiu Changlai crazy? I'm more arrogant than you. Boom! Following that, Lu Ming pulled the spear down. The power of wind and fire naturally fused together, erupting with a terrifying power. Bang! Qiu Changlia's sword qi was instantly destroyed, and the spear continued to strike Qiu Changlai. Bang! Qiu Changlai was sent flying like a rubber ball. His body was almost blown apart, and he was spitting out mouthfuls of blood. Crushing, a complete crushing. The power of wind and fire is actually so strong when completely fused. Lu Ming secretly sighed in his heart. The power of the fusion of wind and fire had greatly exceeded Lu Ming's expectations. Lu Ming estimated that the power of the fusion of wind and fire should be equivalent to the 6th level of the low earth level martial arts technique. After force has reached perfection, it's time to comprehend intent. The natural force of heaven and earth, the natural intent of heaven and earth, contains too many profound mysteries. I've only touched the surface of it now. In the future, I'll have to work harder on force. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. The fusion of wind and fire force will be called wind and fire kill. It can be considered a killing move that I comprehended on my own. In the future, as my comprehension of wind and fire force deepened, I might be able to create a set of martial skills that belongs to me. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with anticipation. Ah! Qiu Changlai howled as he turned around to run. However, Lu Ming caught up with him in a few steps. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few spear strikes landed on Qiu Changlia's body, causing him to scream in pain. It was unknown how many bones in his body had been broken, and he was almost unable to fly. He was barely able to remain in the air. The entire arena fell silent. Qiu Changlai was no match for Tianyun at all. This was a one-sided battle. Tianyun, stop. This battle ends here. I admit that your strength is indeed slightly stronger than mine. Qiu Changlai shouted. Stop? Have you forgotten that we have agreed to a life and death battle, one that will not end until one of us is dead? Lu Ming sneered as he walked toward Qiu Changlai. Qiu Chonglai used the last of his strength to retreat as he shouted, "No, you can't kill me. Tianyun, I'm warning you. I'm the peerless genius of the 10-Direction Sword School, and I'm destined to become a figure at the peak of the world. If you kill me, the 10-Direction Sword School will never let you off." What a joke. You and I have a life and death battle. Neither side will pursue the matter. This is the rule of martial arts. If the 10-Direction Sword School pursues the matter because of this, it will be breaking the rule of martial arts and making an enemy of all martial arts cultivators in the world. I would like to see if the 10-Direction Sword School has the ability to do so. Lu Ming sneered in response. At the same time, he closed in on Qiu Chonglai with a bone-chilling murderous intent. "No, Tianyun, you can't do this. Let me tell you, if you really kill me, no one can protect you. Don't think that the royal family can protect you. Let me tell you, the royal family will be destroyed sooner or later, and the 10-Direction Sword School will unify the Blazing Sun Empire sooner or later. When that time comes, there will be no place for you in the Blazing Sun Empire." Qiu Chonglai bellowed and even tried to threaten Lu Ming. "Oh really? That's a matter for the future. I'll kill you first." Lu Ming sneered. He was already close to Qiu Chonglai. He extended his palm and tried to grab Qiu Chonglai. Qiu Chonglai was already on the verge of death. He had no way of resisting and was held by his throat by Lu Ming. His body began to struggle violently, and his eyes were filled with fear and despair. "Just now, didn't you say that you wanted me to understand what despair is? Now you should understand, right?" Lu Ming looked at Qiu Chonglai coldly and said with a hint of mockery. Just now, Qiu Chonglai had arrogantly told Lu Ming that he wanted him to understand what despair was. Now he understood. "No. Please don't kill me, I beg you, I beg you." Qiu Chonglai shouted out with all his might. He was truly terrified and desperate. The experts of the 10-Direction Sword Sect had all rushed back to the 10-Direction Sword Sect to discuss an important matter. He was the strongest among those who remained in the imperial capital, so no one would come to save him. It was useless even if he came. However, he didn't want to die. He was a peerless genius with a great future. He really didn't want to die. At that moment he was filled with regret. Why did he have to provoke Lu Ming? Now he understood one thing. There were some people that he could never afford to offend. But it was too late to realize it now. "It's too late to beg me now." Lu Ming's eyes glowed coldly, then his essential qi exploded. Bang! Qiu Chonglia's body exploded in the air. Lu Ming secretly controlled his blood meridian and devoured Qiu Chonglia's blood essence. Of course, he would not let go of his storage ring. Silence. At this moment, it was as if the entire imperial capital had fallen silent. Qiu Chonglai had been killed by Tianyun. This genius who had just risen and was about to become one of the 7 heroes of the Scorching Sun had been killed just like that. This Tianyun is too domineering. He's really a ruthless man. The higher-ups of the 10-Direction Sword School are probably going crazy now that Qiu Chonglai has been killed. So what if I go crazy? Tianyun and Qiu Chonglai are fighting to the death according to the rules of martial arts. Would the 10-Direction Sword Sect dare to interfere? Even if we don't interfere openly, we can do it in the dark. That's true. In the imperial capital, countless people were discussing excitedly. Of course, there were also people who sighed. The path of martial arts was just so cruel. No matter how talented you were, you could die at the hands of a stronger genius. The fall of a genius represented the rise of another genius. From now on, there would be one more top genius in the Blazing Sun Empire. That was Tianyun. He really killed Qiu Chonglai. At the edge of the pool, a few imperial family elders were still in disbelief. This is his style. Hua Qi smiled bitterly. Buzz. Lu Ming moved and appeared at the edge of the pool. Let's go to the General Star Hall. After being delayed by the people from the omnidirectional sword sect for such a long time, Lu Ming could not wait to see Lu Yuntian. Hua Qi nodded. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the golden-eyed blood corpse followed him to the General Star Hall. Oh. Chapter 295. Chapter 295. The Martial Emperor's Treasure. 549690339. When Lu Ming saw Lu Yuntian again, they were in an extremely well-hidden side hall of the General Star Hall. Right now, Lu Yuntian had already changed into a new set of robes. He had shaved off his beard and combed his hair neatly. His sword-like brows extended to his temples, making him look extraordinarily handsome. When Lu Yuntian was young, he was already a rarely seen handsome man. However, there was a hideous scar on the top of his nose that extended all the way to his lips, ruining his beauty. However, Lu Yuntian did not mind at all. He only stared at Lu Ming in a daze and sized him up carefully. "Ming, are you finally grown up? You've even become a genius whose name shakes the world. As expected of my son, haha." After a long while, Lu Yuntian laughed out loud. He was very satisfied. During this period of time, Hua Qi had already told him everything about Lu Ming. He was extremely excited and gratified to hear that Lu Ming had achieved so much. However, Lu Ming's nose was sour. His eyes were filled with tears as he said in a trembling voice, "Father, who is it? Who did this? I will make him pay 10 times the price." He had already checked Lu Yuntian's body in detail earlier. Other than a scar on his face, Lu Yuntian's internal injuries were even more severe. All the meridians in his body were broken, and not a single part was intact. In such a situation, let alone cultivation, he was not even as strong as an ordinary person. It was hard to imagine what kind of suffering Lu Yuntian had gone through all these years. Lu Ming felt a terrifying killing intent about to burst out of his chest. "Ming-er, I'll say the same thing again. Don't be rash. Before you have absolute strength, you can't act on impulse." Lu Yuntian muttered to himself. "Father, don't worry. Ming-er knows," Lu Ming said, but his fists were clenched tightly. "Fine, father will tell you." All of this was done by Cho Chongkong. Lu Yuntian sighed. "Cho Chongkong, it's him." Lu Ming growled and then said, "Why? Father, why did Cho Chongkong do this to you?" "Because of the martial emperor's treasure," Lu Yuntian said. Back then, Cho Chongkong wasn't the current leader of the 6 heroes of the Scorching Sun, but he was already a young genius. For some reason, he found out that I had the martial emperor's treasure, so he secretly sent people to capture me. He has been interrogating me all these years, trying to get the news of the martial emperor's treasure from me. Haha, he's dreaming. How could I tell him? It's just a waste of effort. Cho Chongkong, I'll make sure he pays a terrible price for this," Lu Ming said in a low voice, his voice extremely cold. "The martial emperor's treasure? Why is he so sure that father knows about the martial emperor's treasure?" "I do know about the martial emperor's treasure," Lu Yuntian chuckled. "What?" Lu Ming was greatly shocked. "Haha, I got the news of the martial emperor's treasure by accident. But I was prepared for it, so I've already left the news to you." Lu Yuntian smiled. "You're leaving it for me?" Lu Ming was a little stunned. "Could it be that bronze pendant?" Lu Ming asked. "No." Lu Yuntian smiled. "I obtained that bronze pendant by chance. I found it interesting, so I've been carrying it with me. I'll leave it to you later. The news of the martial emperor's treasure is actually in that heavenly star sword." Heavenly star sword? Lu Ming was stunned. Then he moved his hand and the star sword appeared in his hand. Lu Yuntian was overjoyed. He took the heavenly star sword and examined it carefully before passing it to Lu Ming. "Ming-er, that's right. I've sealed the news of the martial emperor's treasure in this heavenly star sword. In this heavenly star sword there's a key to opening the martial emperor's treasure, as well as a map. You can find an inscription master to retrieve them later on. When your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can head to the martial emperor's treasure and obtain a great opportunity. It's actually in the heavenly star sword." Lu Ming secretly sighed. "Ming-er, how has your mother been all these years?" Lu Yuntian asked. However, his voice was trembling. "Father, mother is very good. It's just that all these years I've been thinking about you," Lu Ming said. "That's good. I've let her down all these years." Lu Yuntian sighed. "Father, don't worry. The imperial family has already secretly sent people to pick up mother. Our family will be reunited soon," Lu Ming said. Lu Yuntian's eyes revealed a hint of anticipation. Father, don't worry. Even if I have to travel all over the world, I will find the spiritual medicine to heal your injuries and let you embark on the path of martial arts again. Lu Ming said firmly. Ming-er, it's good that you have this intention. However, it's easier said than done to cure my injuries. There's no need to force yourself. Lu Yuntian sighed. It had been many years since he had been injured, and all his meridians had been severed. It would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to heal him. He did not have much hope for himself. He was already satisfied to be able to see Lu Ming and Li Ping in his lifetime. However, Lu Ming's gaze was extremely determined. The divine wilderness continent was vast and boundless. There would be no lack of treasures. Legend had it that some treasures could even regrow broken limbs or bring the dead back to life. As long as he could obtain that treasure, it would not be a small matter to cure Lu Yuntian's meridians and remove the scars on his face. No matter how hard it is, I must get it. Lu Ming secretly swore. After that, he had a long chat with Lu Yuntian. After chatting for a few hours, Lu Ming left the place. Regardless of whether he wanted to avenge Lu Yuntian or treat his injuries, he could not do without a powerful cultivation base. He had to cultivate non-stop. Qiu Chongkong, you and I will not rest until one of us is dead. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with murderous intent. After returning to his room, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and walked away, thinking carefully about the direction of his cultivation. Currently, he had a few main cultivation directions. One of them was the breakthrough of the true war dragon technique. He had obtained the dragon bone pearl from Xian Yanqing. As long as he obtained a supplementary material called the cold spirit fluid, he would be able to break through to the 5th stage of the true war dragon technique and possess 6 times the strength of ordinary true qi. The other was the cultivation of the 10,000 spiritual combat body. As long as he could cultivate his body to the 4th stage, he could start to practice the divine level martial technique, 9 dragons heaven treading steps. Alright, let's go and buy a portion of the cold spirit fluid first. Lu Ming stood up and walked towards the imperial city's market. The cold spirit fluid was only a supplementary material. It was not particularly rare. After circling the market once, Lu Ming successfully bought a portion. After returning to the General Star's Hall and entering the Supreme Shrine, Lu Ming took out the Worm Dragon Bone Pearl and the cold spiritual liquid and began to cultivate. First, he refined the Water Dragon Bone Bead, and then mixed it with the cold spirit liquid. Half a day later, the True War Dragon technique had successfully broken through and reached the 5th stage. The surging true qi circulated in his meridians vast and endless. Lu Ming's combat strength had increased by a large margin. If I cultivate the True War Dragon technique to the 9th stage, I'll have 10 times the amount of true qi. I wonder how powerful I'll be? Lu Ming was filled with anticipation. He hoped that he could cultivate the True War Dragon technique to the 9th level as soon as possible. With 10 times the amount of essential qi, Lu Ming would be unrivaled among those of the same level, unless the other party also cultivated a divine level technique. Now let's count. Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief. He then waved his hand and a pile of storage rings appeared on the ground. They were all obtained from killing enemies during this period of time. Oh! Chapter 296. Chapter 296. 4th Grade Physical Body, 9 Dragons Trampling the Heavens. 549690339. In the remains of the Cloud Emperor Palace, although he didn't kill many people, his opponents had killed a lot of people. Which one of them didn't have a few lives? Therefore, when he sorted out the storage rings, there were more than 200 of them. Most of the 200-odd storage rings belonged to 8th or 9th grade Grandmaster Realm young geniuses, but there were also dozens of storage rings that belonged to martial grandmasters. There were even storage rings from peerless geniuses like Qiu Chonglai and Zhao Hong. Lu Ming was full of anticipation for the wealth inside. He didn't know and was shocked. Even though Lu Ming was mentally prepared, he was still dumbfounded. A mountain of spiritual crystals could not even be stored in a storage ring. There were 56 million spiritual crystals in total. 50 million? What a terrifying number this was. Lu Ming was in a daze. Holding back his ecstasy, Lu Ming used a few storage rings to keep the spiritual crystals and looked at the other items. There were over 4,000 spirit weapons. There were more than 12,000 spiritual herbs and grasses. However, most of them weren't very high level, and only a few of them had reached level 4. There were also over 200 books of various cultivation techniques and martial arts techniques, as well as all kinds of forging materials. He had struck it rich. Lu Ming had struck it rich. This amount of wealth, other than the 5 great sects and the royal family, I don't think the other small forces in the Blazing Sun Empire would have this much even if they went bankrupt. Lu Ming secretly sighed. Half an hour later, Lu Ming put the various items into the storage ring and kept them. Then he kept it, and the 10,000 Spirit Combat Body Manual appeared in Lu Ming's hands. He flipped it open and started to read it carefully. An hour later, Lu Ming closed the secret manual. The 10,000 Spiritual Combat Body is so terrifying and mysterious. Lu Ming was amazed. The 10,000-mile battle body could refine all the spirits in the world and produce the chi of 10,000 spirits, which would be integrated into the body and constantly improve the strength of the body. 10,000 spirits, as long as it was something with spirituality in the world, it could be used. For example, all kinds of spiritual herbs, metal materials, and ores that contain spiritual essence could be refined into the chi of 10,000 spirits to cultivate the body. Could even be used on living creatures. It was terrifying. As expected of a technique that can cultivate one's body to the 9th stage. It's really overbearing. Lu Ming was shocked and excited. Then Lu Ming closed his eyes and began to comprehend. For 3 consecutive days, Lu Ming had been trying to comprehend the 10,000 spiritual combat body. Tens of thousands of miles away from the imperial capital, there was a stretch of mountains that stretched on endlessly like a fairyland. This was the location of the 10-direction sword sect, the 10-direction mountain. At the highest point of the 10-square mountain, a dozen people were sitting in a hall. Each of them was just sitting there casually, but they exuded an aura as vast as the mountains and as deep as the sea, vast and unfathomable. Qiu Wuyang, the sect leader of the 10-direction sword sect, sat at the highest position with a gloomy expression. The atmosphere in the hall was extremely oppressive. Bang! Suddenly, an old man with a cold face slammed the table and shouted, "That brat Tianyun deserves to die for killing the peerless hero of my 10-direction sword sect. Sect leader, please allow me to personally kill Tianyun. This is inappropriate." Another voice rang out. Tianyun and Chonglai were having a life-and-death battle. Countless people in the imperial capital saw it. If we were to kill Tianyun like this, I'm afraid it would incur the wrath of the martial world. Then we can send assassins. The cold-faced old man said. Tianyun is a small matter. Our plan is more important. I don't think we can let Tianyun affect our plan. The person from before said. The crowd fell into silence again. After a while, Qiu Wuyang said, "Let's follow our plan first. As long as everything goes well, Tianyun will be dead. He killed the hero of our Shifeng sword sect. He can't live in this world. But let's put it aside for now. Now let's discuss the specific details of this matter." No one objected to Qiu Wuyang's suggestion. Then they began to discuss an important matter. In the Supreme Shrine, Lu Ming had been meditating on the 10,000 spiritual combat body for 3 days. 3 days later he opened his eyes. Then, he moved his hand and a level 2 spiritual herb appeared in his hand. "Refine," Lu Ming muttered. Following that, the essential qi in his body trembled according to the 10,000 spirit combat bodies technique. A wave of dense qi spread out from Lu Ming's palm and wrapped around the spiritual herb. After a few breaths, the spirit herb disappeared. It was refined into a wisp of strange gas and entered Lu Ming's body. This was the qi of 10,000 spirits. Once the qi of myriad spirits entered Lu Ming's body, it seeped into his entire body. Lu Ming could clearly feel that his physical body was getting stronger. Although the extent was not large and it was very small, it was indeed getting stronger. It was many times faster than ordinary physical cultivation techniques. Amazing, this is amazing. Lu Ming was shocked and his eyes were filled with excitement. Then, he took out a level 3 spiritual herb, and turned it into the qi of 10,000 spirits to improve his body. For the next 3 days, Lu Ming continued to refine spiritual herbs and improve his physical body. In these 3 days, he refined no less than 200 spiritual herbs. Finally, his body broke through the limit and reached the 4th grade body in one go. The 4th grade physical body was extremely wondrous. Lu Ming could almost change his muscles, bones, and body shape at will. Even after being injured, the muscles would automatically wriggle, sealing the wound and healing it quickly. His muscles were like steel and his bones were like steel. His veins were wide and flexible. Lu Ming could unleash his strength without any restraint. This was a huge improvement to his combat strength. Now that my physical body has reached the 4th stage, I can finally start cultivating the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps. Lu Ming could not wait to take out the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and begin to comprehend it. The pressure from the secret manual was no longer a problem for Lu Ming. However, after a moment, he closed the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps and frowned. Because he was completely confused, he didn't know where to start. It was too difficult to cultivate a divine-level martial technique. A god-level martial technique was completely different from the heaven, earth, black, and yellow-level martial techniques. God-level martial techniques were not divided into levels such as the 1st level, the 2nd level, and so on. God-level martial techniques were very special. Each one was unique in the world and there were all kinds of differences. For example, the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps was divided into 9 steps. With every step he cultivated, the power would become stronger and stronger. Step by step, the power would stack. If he could cultivate the 9 steps, the power of the 9 steps would stack up, and he could crush mountains and break the heavens. The power was terrifying to the extreme. As long as the 1st step of the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps was cultivated, the full power of the 1st step could be exerted. At the same time as one's cultivation level increased, the power of the 1st step would also become stronger. It was a pity that it was too difficult to cultivate it. Lu Ming studied it for a while but could not find any clues. Looks like I'll have to comprehend it slowly. As long as I put in more effort, I don't believe I can't cultivate it successfully. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and pondered. After comprehending the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps for a while, he began to cultivate the 10,000 spiritual combat body. He had countless spiritual herbs on him, so he didn't have to worry about not having enough spiritual herbs to cultivate. After cultivating the 10,000 spirit combat body for a few hours, Lu Ming condensed a figure on the 3rd platform and fought with it to cultivate his martial arts technique. Chapter 297. Chapter 297. The Attack of the Dark Moon Empire. 549690339. Cultivation knew no time. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had been in closed-door cultivation for a month. His physical body had improved the fastest in the past month. After using 3,000 spiritual herbs, Lu Ming's physical body reached the 5th grade. However, after reaching Tier 5, using some Level 1 and Level 2 spiritual herbs to cultivate would have very poor effects. Only Level 3 spiritual herbs had some effect, and Level 4 spiritual herbs were even better. However, Lu Ming did not have many Level 4 spiritual herbs. Lu Ming still had more than 8,000 spiritual herbs on him. However, he felt that even if he refined all of them, he could not cultivate his body to the 6th grade. The higher the level of the body, the more energy it required. Also, after reaching the martial arts grandmaster realm, one's comprehension of martial arts techniques would be much faster. After a month of bitter cultivation and continuous battles with himself, Lu Ming's martial arts skills had improved at a rapid pace. He had cultivated the ancient shield mantra to the 6th level in one go, and could condense 6 ancient shields at once. His defensive power had been greatly enhanced. As for the 3 palms, he had successfully cultivated the 2nd palm in one go, the beast palm. A palm struck out, a huge beast palm blasted out. Its power was a level stronger than the human path palm. The reason why he was able to improve so quickly was because of the 3rd platform. Of course, he had to pay more than 600,000 crystals for it. Now, with Lu Ming's cultivation at the 2nd tier of the martial arts grandmaster realm, He would need 10,000 spiritual crystals to condense a figure that looked exactly like him. Each time it could last for 6 hours. The consumption was extremely shocking. If not for the fact that Lu Ming had a net worth of more than 50 million, he could not afford to spend it. At this moment, Lu Ming's ability could be said to have reached its peak. Although his cultivation was still at the early stage of the two-dan martial ancestor realm, he could kill Qiu Chonglai in one move if he were to fight him. On the other hand, Li Ping had already arrived at the imperial capital half a month ago to meet Lu Yuntian. When the two met, they were naturally full of warmth. They stayed together every day and were reluctant to part. During this time, Xian Yanqing had also been cultivating in seclusion. As for the golden-eyed blood corpse, Lu Ming had asked it to lie dormant in a place. That day, Hua Qi came to Lu Ming in a hurry and brought him a piece of shocking news. The Dark Moon Empire had sent out 1,000,000 troops to attack the Blazing Sun Empire. The Ghost Moon Saber sect in the north had already asked for help from the Burning Sun Empire. The imperial family's 2 armies at the northern border also asked for help. The entire Blazing Sun Empire was shaken. Although the Inu Empire and the Blazing Sun Empire had always been in constant conflict, it was still rare for them to dispatch an army of 1,000,000 to attack. In fact, there were only a few times in history. Lu Ming, the royal family, will be sending an elite army this time, as well as some young powerhouses that the royal family has been secretly cultivating. They'll head north. On one hand, it's to boost the reputation of the royal family, and on the other hand, it's to train these young powerhouses. However, as you know, all geniuses are proud and unruly. No one is willing to submit to the other. My father wanted to choose someone to be the commander of this army and subdue these young experts, but after thinking about it, only you are suitable. Hua Qi said to Lu Ming. Me? Lu Ming was stunned. Yes, there's no one more suitable than you. To tell you the truth, some of these young experts are geniuses from Star Cluster Hall, and some of them were secretly recruited by the royal family and sent to the Bloodjiao Empire's Great Sun Mansion to cultivate since they were young. They all have their eyes on the top of their heads, and ordinary people can't subdue them. Hua Qi explained with a bitter smile. But father said that he won't force you. If you don't want to go, he will find someone else. Hua Qi said. Yes, why not? Lu Ming smiled. After being in seclusion for so long, he wanted to go out and train himself. The battlefield was undoubtedly the best place to train. Lu Ming, you agree? That's great. I'll go back and report to my father. If everything goes well, we'll set off in 2 days. Hua Qi was overjoyed. Lu Ming nodded. Hua Qi then took his leave. I'll also go and bid farewell to father and mother. After that, Lu Ming went to Lu Yuntian's residence. Lu Yuntian and Li Ping did not object to the news. A martial artist must experience a series of life and death situations in order to reach the peak. Ming-er, go ahead. Lu Yuntian was very supportive. Back then, as a member of the Lu clan, Lu Yuntian had often gone out to explore in his pursuit of martial arts. It was only then that he had unintentionally discovered the secret of the martial emperor's treasure. Ming-er, the battlefield is extremely dangerous. You must be careful. Although Li Ping did not object, she could not help but be worried. She warned him seriously. Father, mother, don't worry. Ming-er will be fine. Lu Ming smiled and assured the 2 elders. 2 days passed quickly. 2 days later, Lu Ming brought the golden-eyed blood corpse to the General Star Hall's training ground. The army was gathering there. Lu Ming, don't even think about ditching me. Xian Yanqing appeared beside Lu Ming. Little Qing, what's wrong? You can't bear to leave me? Lu Ming chuckled. Who can't bear to leave you? I'm afraid that you'll run away or die on the battlefield. If that's the case, who can I find to settle the score with? How can I step on you? Xian Yanqing snorted. Haha, then come with me. But I heard that it's cold in the north. You have to warm my bed at night. Lu Ming laughed and walked forward. Warm your head in your dreams. Xian Yanqing's fierce voice could be heard as the 2 of them walked further and further away. Rows of armored soldiers stood in front of the field commander of the General Star Hall. These soldiers were all tall and burly, and they emitted a powerful and murderous aura. With one look, one could tell that they were all elite soldiers, veterans who had gone through the baptism of war. There was a total of 20,000 soldiers. The sunlight shone on the armors of the 20,000-strong army, giving off a cold glow. At the top of the martial arts field stood dozens of people. Most of them were young men in their 20s, and each of them had a strong and profound aura. Even the weakest of them was a 9th-grade great martial master. There were 10 young men whose auras were as strong as mountains, and they were clearly martial ancestor realm experts. Among these 10 people, 7 of them were the strongest experts in Star Cluster Hall, equivalent to the gold disciples of the 5 great sections. The remaining 3 people had the strongest auras. As they looked around, a faint sense of pride could be seen. They were the geniuses that the royal family had sent to the Great Sun Mansion to cultivate. In the middle stood the emperor of the Burning Sun Empire, Hua Zhengxing. Next to Hua Zhengxing was Hua Qi. Your Majesty, who is our commander? Why isn't he here yet? What arrogance to have His Majesty wait here. And NBSP, a young man who was cultivating in the Great Sun Prefecture, shouted unhappily. That's right. I don't think he has any respect for His Majesty. In my opinion, we should just remove him from his position and let senior brother Huaying be the commander-in-chief. Another young man who was cultivating in the Great Sun Mansion said. The Huaying he was talking about was a young man in a golden robe. He was the last young man to cultivate in Great Sun Mansion. This man was extraordinary and had the aura of a king. He was a member of the royal Hua family, but he was not a direct descendant. He was from the branch. However, his talent was extremely terrifying. He was a rare genius in the past 100 years. He had been noticed by the emperor and sent to the Great Sun Prefecture to cultivate. His cultivation was unfathomable now. Oh. Chapter 298. Chapter 298. I am the Commander-in-Chief. 549690339. Huaying stood with his hands behind his back. He had an extraordinary bearing, and his eyes revealed a faint arrogance. At the same time, he revealed a look of dissatisfaction. Originally, he had thought that he would be the commander-in-chief this time, but unexpectedly, it had been given to someone else, which made him very unhappy. Your Majesty, I suggest that we change Senior Brother Huaying to be the Commander-in-Chief. Senior Brother Huaying is well versed in military tactics and has a profound cultivation. He will definitely lead the army and win every battle. The young man from before saluted Hua Zhengxing and suggested. 100 victories? I don't know where this brat came from, but he actually wants to take the position of Commander-in-Chief. What a joke! Among the 7 martial arts grandmasters of the Star Cluster Hall, someone was unconvinced and sneered. The royal family had always treated the Star Cluster Hall as the leader. The 7 of them were the strongest experts in the Star Cluster Hall. Where did those 3 brats come from? How was it possible for him to covet the position of Commander-in-Chief the moment he arrived? How could the young expert from the Star Cluster Hall possibly agree? Kid, what did you say? The young man who had been suggesting Huaying to be the commander-in-chief looked at the Star Cluster Hall's people with a dark expression. His name was Gao Li, and he had a very good relationship with Huaying. Did you not hear what I said? I said that he doesn't have the qualifications to be the commander. If he wants to be the commander, he's a genius of my Star Cluster Hall. That person from the Star Cluster Hall continued to speak. A genius from the Star Cluster Hall? Haha, I'm dying of laughter. A few trash-like things dare to call them Slavere's geniuses. It's really laughable. Gawain laughed in disdain. Who are you calling trash? Today I'll let you know my power. The young man from the Star Cluster Hall roared and a powerful aura burst out as he walked towards Gao Li. You want to fight? That's just what I want. Gao Li's figure moved and swept towards the other party. At the same time, he threw a punch. This punch was as powerful as a mountain, and a powerful force spread out. The young man from the Star Cluster Hall also shouted and struck out with his palm. As the fist and palm collided, the young man from Star Cluster Hall let out a blood-curdling screech and his body flew out like a cannonball. He fell heavily on the ground and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Second level of Wu Zong. The young man from the Star Cluster Hall shouted. Humph. A mere one-stage martial ancestor realm wants to fight me? You're really looking for death. Gawain said coldly. During this process, Hua Zhongxing did not stop him and just watched coldly. He had already expected this outcome. As long as no one died, he would not care. Now if you are unconvinced, feel free to attack. Gao Li was incomparably arrogant as he swept his gaze across everyone in the Star Cluster Hall. Everyone from the Star Cluster Hall had an ugly expression as they could not help but look at a bald youth in the middle. This bald young man was the #1 expert in Star Cluster Hall, with a cultivation of the second level of martial ancestor realm. I'll fight you. The bald young man stepped forward and stood opposite Gao Li. Boom! There was nothing much to say, and the battle immediately erupted. It had to be said that Gao Li was indeed very strong. Although the bald youth was at the same level as him, he was no match for him at all. In just a dozen moves he was sent flying and coughed out blood. Humph, you're indeed a bunch of trash. Still not admitting it? I can only say that you have not seen the world and have never seen the geniuses of a big country. You think that just because you are in a corner and have a little achievement you are self-satisfied? How short-sighted are you? How can you improve like this? Gao Li had his hands behind his back as he looked down at the people of Star Cluster Hall, and berated them with the tone of an elder disciplining a junior. Detestable. Where did these guys come from? How can they be so strong? The faces of everyone in the Star Cluster Hall turned red as they roared in their hearts. They were extremely aggrieved. Hee hee. Gao Li let out a disdainful sneer and said, Senior brother Huaying is much stronger than me. Why don't you accept him as the commander-in-chief? Of course not. A guy who stayed in a big country for a while, and thinks he's a genius has come back to show off his strength. What right does he have to be the commander? At this time a faint voice was heard. Who is it? Gao Li's face instantly turned ugly. Huaying's face darkened. As for Hua Qi, a hint of joy flashed through his eyes when he heard this voice. The owner of the voice was of course Lu Ming. With his hands behind his back, Lu Ming walked towards them with Xian Yanqing and the golden-eyed blood corpse by his side. Kid, who are you? How dare you talk to me like this? Gao Li stared at Lu Ming with a gloomy look. Tianyun, it's Tianyun. Before Lu Ming could say anything, the young experts from the Star Cluster Hall could not help but exclaim. Lu Ming smiled and said, Who am I? I'm the commander-in-chief this time. You still don't kneel and pay your respects when you see the commander-in-chief. Don't you understand military law? Commander? You're the commander-in-chief? Ridiculous, ridiculous, I can't accept this. Gao Li shouted, then turned to Hua Zhongxing and saluted. Your Majesty, the commander-in-chief this time is no small matter. How can you let such a young boy take up the position? I'm not convinced. Hua Zhongxing's face was calm, and no expression could be seen. He said, Tianyun is someone that I have my eyes on. What's there to be unconvinced about? Your Majesty, the position of a commander is no small matter. Only the capable can take it. If we let an incompetent person become the commander, it will harm these tens of thousands of soldiers. Gawain said, I agree to let Tianyun be the commander-in-chief. I'm convinced that Tianyun will be the commander-in-chief. Suddenly, a young man from Star Cluster Hall shouted. I also agree to let Tianyun be the commander. I also agree. I'm convinced. The other young men from Star Cluster Hall also chimed in. Tianyun had killed Qiu Chonglai some time ago, and he was extremely powerful. They were all convinced of his strength. However, Gao Li and the others had just returned from the Bloodjiao Empire and had not heard of Tianyun's name. At this moment Gao Li's face was extremely gloomy as he said coldly, a bunch of frogs in a well. They've never seen a real genius, so they can only regard trash as geniuses. Then he looked at Lu Ming. Kid, if you want to be a commander you have to be capable. I'd like to see what you're capable of. With that, a powerful aura emanated from his body and he slowly approached Lu Ming. You talk too much. Hurry up and attack or you won't have the chance. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Arrogant. Gao Li was furious. He shouted and threw a punch at Lu Ming. The powerful fist force almost penetrated the void. He had used all his strength in this punch. He was determined to teach Lu Ming an unforgettable lesson. However, Lu Ming completely ignored his fist force. He took a step forward and the ground cracked. Lu Ming's figure instantly appeared in front of Gao Li and kicked him. This kick landed directly on Gao Li's stomach. Bang! Gao Li let out a blood-curdling screech as he was sent flying by Lu Ming's kick. He flew thousands of meters away and crashed heavily into a huge rock. Everyone was dumbfounded. This included the Star Cluster Hall's heroes and the 20,000-strong army present. Although they knew that Lu Ming was very powerful, the visual effect was too shocking. The second-level martial arts Grandmaster Genius was sent flying by Lu Ming's kick. This is what it means to cultivate in a big country? A genius who had seen the world? It's not much? Lu Ming slowly retracted his leg and said indifferently. Poochie. Hua Qi couldn't help but laugh. Some people from the Star Cluster Hall almost laughed out loud. Oh. Chapter 299. Chapter 299. Chapter 299 Defeat. 549690339. On the other hand, Huang was the complete opposite. He clenched his fists tightly and his eyes were filled with ferocity. Bang! He took a step forward, and a wild beast-like aura exploded from his body. It was extremely terrifying and vast. He was in the late third level of martial ancestor realm. You're Tianyun? Just now you only used your movement technique to avoid Gao Li's attack, and caught him off guard. What's so great about it? In my opinion, it's just a despicable method. Otherwise, how could you seriously injure Gao Li with your second-grade martial ancestor realm cultivation? Huang stared at Lu Ming coldly. Oh really? Lu Ming smiled faintly and could not be bothered to explain. However, this will not work in my hands. I will let you know what true strength is. Huang's eyes were filled with confidence. His talent was indeed very high. At the age of 25, he had already cultivated to the late stage of martial ancestor 3 Dan. Even in the Bloodjiao Empire, where geniuses were as common as clouds, he was still a top genius, only slightly weaker than the 50 super rookies of the Bloodjiao. In the younger generation of the Blazing Sun Empire, other than the 6 heroes of the Blazing Sun Empire, he did not believe that there was anyone else who could be a match for him. Therefore, he did not take Lu Ming seriously at all. 3 moves. I will defeat you within 3 moves. If I can't defeat you, why don't I give you the position of commander? Huang put her hands behind her back and looked extremely arrogant. Lu Ming shook his head and smiled. Then he slowly stretched out a finger. 1 move. Haha, it seems like you don't have much confidence in yourself. Do you think I can defeat you in 1 move? Huang laughed. No, you've misunderstood. Lu Ming shook his head and said, what I mean is, I will defeat you in 1 move. An NBSP. What? What did you just say? You defeated me in 1 move? Ha ha ha. Huang was stunned for a moment, thinking that she had misheard him. Then she burst out laughing. Defeat me in 1 move? Even if the 6 heroes of the Scorching Sun are here, they wouldn't dare to say such words. You're so boastful. I'd like to see how you're going to defeat me in 1 move. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out of Huang's body, and a beam of sword chi soared into the sky. At the same time, his bloodline also burst out, and a Silavira chakra appeared, which was extremely dazzling. Hua Ying's second bloodline was also a first-tier king bloodline. This meant that he had the potential of one of the 6 Scorching Sun heroes. Slash! Huang held his sword with both hands and raised it high. A giant sword that was 100 meters long formed and stood between the sky and the earth. The 20,000 soldiers were all shocked. If you want to fight, then fight. What's the use of all these tricks? Lu Ming pursed his lips and then struck out a palm. A huge beast claw condensed in the sky and pressed down on Huang's giant sword. This beast claw was more than 20 meters long and wide. It was like a small mountain covered in black scales, looking extremely ferocious. The second palm of the 3 palms, beast palm. Bang! Under the beast Dao palm, The giant sword that Huaying had condensed was like a bubble collapsing. The beast's claw did not stop and continued to press down on Huaying. How did this happen? Huaying let out a roar of disbelief. He kept swinging his sword upwards, sending out sword chi at the beast's claw. However, it was of no use. The sword chi collapsed one after another, and the beast's claw continued to press down on Huaying. Bang! A cloud of dust filled the air as Huaying was directly crushed by the beast's claw and smashed into the ground. After a while, the beast's claw disappeared, leaving a 20-meter wide beast paw print on the ground. Huaying was lying in the palm print, twitching and foaming at the mouth. Tragic, it was really too tragic. Lu Ming had shown mercy. Otherwise, one slap would have been enough to smash him into a pulp of flesh. Good. The invincible Tian Yun. After a long moment of silence, a loud shout suddenly came from the army. Lu Ming swept his gaze over and saw Ming Feng in the army. The roar just now was from Ming Feng. If it wasn't Ming Zhu and Ming Cheng beside Ming Feng, who else could it be? The invincible Tian Yun. Ming Feng continued to shout. After that, Ming Zhu and Ming Cheng also shouted. Soon the others seemed to have been infected as well and started to shout as well. The 20,000-strong army let out a deafening howl that shook the heavens. In the end, even the geniuses of Star Cluster Hall started to roar. Lu Ming raised his hand and the entire place suddenly fell silent. Everyone, it is thanks to His Majesty's favor that I am allowed to become the commander of this army. I, Tian Yun, swear that as long as everyone believes in me, I will do my best to lead everyone to great achievements. Lu Ming's clear voice spread throughout the entire venue. Make a contribution, make a contribution. The 20,000-strong army roared. On the high platform, Hua Zhengxing stroked his beard and looked at Lu Ming with admiration in his eyes. How could this be? How did this happen? At this moment, Huaying and Gao Li had already struggled to get up, but their eyes were filled with disbelief. All right, Gao Li, Huaying, step forward and listen to my orders. Hua Zhengxing suddenly shouted. Your Majesty. Huaying and Gawain bowed. Now Tian Yun is the commander-in-chief. Are you convinced? Hua Zhengxing asked. I'm convinced. The two of them hesitated for a moment before answering. Lu Ming could tell that although the two of them were convincing verbally, they might not be convinced in their hearts. However, Lu Ming did not care. He did not take these two people to heart at all. All right, since that's the case, we'll set off immediately, Hua Zhengxing announced. Not long after, an army of 20,000 soldiers, each riding a tall green scale horse, left the capital and headed north. The 20,000-strong army formed a long dragon that stomped across the earth. Lu Ming was riding on a tall and majestic green scaled horse at the front. Xian Yanqing, the golden-eyed blood corpse, and the three siblings from Ming City were following him. Behind them were Huaying and the other young geniuses. Ming Cheng, why are you guys here? Lu Ming asked curiously on the way. Because the general of Moonview City is our father, Ming Feng rushed to say. No wonder. Lu Ming had a sudden realization. The place they were going to provide assistance to this time was Full Moon City. Although the royal family was weak, the northern border with the Dark Moon Empire was an important military location. The royal family still had two powerful legions guarding it and listening to the royal family's orders. One of them was the Mountain Army, and the other was the Northern Army. The two legions were both elite and had been through hundreds of battles. Each of them had 100,000 troops and could be considered one of the few elite legions of the royal family. Ming Cheng and Ming Zhu's father was the general of the mountain-suppressing army, Ming Meng. This time, the 1 million troops of the Dark Moon Empire were attacking. The first to bear the brunt was, of course, the Ghost Moon Saber sect. The Mountain Army and the Northern Army were also affected and started a fierce battle with the Dark Moon Empire. The mountain-suppressing army was struggling and had asked for help from the royal family. This time, Lu Ming and the rest were rushing to the mountain-suppressing army's aid. Therefore, the three Ming siblings naturally followed. Along the way, the three Ming siblings were very worried that something bad would happen to their father. The army's speed was naturally much slower than Lu Ming's flying. It would take at least a month's time to travel from the imperial capital to Full Moon City. Oh. Chapter 300. Chapter 300. Chapter 300 The Killer. 549690339. Soon 25 days had passed. These 25 days had been calm and peaceful. They had come all the way to Mount Han. In front of them was the 1,000-li cold mountain. As long as they crossed this 1,000-li cold mountain, they would reach Moonview City, which was a 4 to 5 day journey. Let's go into the mountains and set up camp. Lu Ming gave the order. The 20,000-strong army advanced towards Mount Han. After a few dozen miles, they found a flat area to set up camp and had dinner. As night fell, the roars of beasts could be heard from the 1,000 li of Mount Han. Lu Ming asked some of them to patrol and some to rest. Late at night, more than 20 figures were leaping at high speed in the 1,000 li of the cold mountains. More than 20 people, all wearing black robes, moved at a terrifying speed, like ghosts in the forest at night. Not long after, more than 20 figures appeared not far from Lu Ming's army, looking at the military camp. According to the news, the Burning Sun royal family has sent out only young experts this time. The general is also a young man. He's a peerless genius named Tian Yun. As long as we kill Tian Yun and the other young geniuses, this army will be crippled. A few black-robed men were discussing. I've heard that Tian Yun is a genius on the same level as the Scorching Sun's 6 heroes. Leave him to me. A black-robed man with a golden moon embroidered on it said. The others nodded. This golden moon black-robed man was the strongest among them. Come, let's get closer. Jinue waved her hand, and more than 20 people followed her like ghosts towards the camp. They didn't emit any aura, and they didn't make any sound as they walked. It was silent. It stopped 1,000 meters away from the military camp. One of the tents is emitting the aura of a 3-stage martial ancestor realm expert. That person should be Tian Yun. I'll go kill him, you guys go and kill the others. The black-robed Jinue ordered. The others nodded. Under the moonlight, their figures actually became hazy, and they disappeared without a sound. The golden moon black-robed man was the fastest. He easily passed through the layers of checkpoints and arrived in front of a tent. A young man was sitting cross-legged in the tent. He was none other than Hua Ying. Among the many young powerhouses, his cultivation was the highest. He had reached the later stage of the 3rd level of the martial arts grandmaster realm. The golden moon black-robed man naturally thought that he was Lu Ming. Genius? Die. Killing intent flashed in Jinue's eyes. A slender black sword appeared in her hand. She and the sword turned into a black lightning and stabbed toward Huaying. Huaying, who was sitting cross-legged in cultivation, suddenly felt a terrifying aura of death envelop him. All the hair on his body stood on end. Not good. Huaying's spiritual sense was extremely sensitive, and he had used it to avoid killing intent many times. At this time he did not think and rushed into the sky. Even so, he was still a step too late. Puchi! The long sword pierced through his shoulder. As blood splattered, Huaying roared and an eagle appeared above his head. This was his bloodline. The eagle's wings flapped rapidly and he retreated. You're quite capable. You actually managed to avoid my sure-kill sword strike. But you still have to die. The golden moon black-robed man sneered and charged at Huaying like a ghost. At the same time, in another tent, Lu Ming suddenly opened his eyes. In front of him, the tent suddenly split open, and a dark sword light stabbed toward his forehead at an extremely fast speed. A 2nd-level martial ancestor realm assassin. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He did not move, but he waved his right hand suddenly. A long spear was condensed instantly and stabbed forward. His speed was much faster than that of a killer. How could this be? The assassin was so shocked that it was too late to dodge. Lu Ming's long spear pierced through his heart and the assassin was sent flying. Buzz! Lu Ming burst out of the tent and appeared in the sky. In the military camp there were several screams. A young master had been assassinated. There were also young experts who were fighting with the assassins. Lu Ming's eyes swept across the area and saw Xian Yanqing's figure flash across the sky. Behind her there was a corpse. He swept his gaze again and saw that Golden Moonblack was chasing after Hua Ying. He was in danger and could be killed at any moment. Golden-Eye kill. Lu Ming ordered the golden-eyed blood corpse. The golden-eyed blood corpse roared in anger and pounced at the assassins. Lu Ming waved his hand and a long spear appeared. Then he threw it out. The long spear turned into a bolt of lightning and shot toward the Golden Moon black-robed man. And NBSP. At this moment, Golden Moonblack's men had already closed in on Hua Ying, their cold killing intent enveloping Hua Ying. Hua Ying's body turned cold. He had a feeling that he would die under the sword of the Golden Moon black-robed man in the next moment. This feeling almost suffocated him. He roared in his heart, "No, I can't die. I can't die. I still have to revitalize the Hua family." However, he had just been stabbed by the sword, and the terrifying sword chi had continuously penetrated his entire body. He felt waves of weakness. Jinyue's black-robed figure instantly closed in. "Die!" The Golden Moon black-robed man laughed coldly and thrust his sword at Hua Ying. This sword was even faster than the previous one. It was incomparably sharp and unstoppable. Hua Ying couldn't block it at all. "No!" Hua Ying roared, her heart filled with despair. At this moment, whoosh! A bolt of lightning broke through the air, fast to the extreme. It was a long spear that was condensed from true energy. Clang! The long spear struck the Golden Moon black-robed man's long sword, causing a violent tremor. Jinyue's black-robed figure trembled, and his body couldn't help but drift to the side. Lu Ming's figure moved. In the next moment, he passed by Hua Ying and headed towards Jinyue's black-robed man. Hua Ying cast a complicated look at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had saved him just now. "Who are you?" The Golden Moon black-robed man let out a low roar. The power of Lu Ming's move had exceeded his expectations. He was shocked that he was forced back even with his 6th-level martial arts grandmaster cultivation. "Tian Yun." Lu Ming replied indifferently. Jinyue's pupils suddenly contracted, and she said in a deep voice, "So you're the real Tian Yun. You know me? You were sent by the Dark Moon Empire, right?" Lu Ming's eyes flickered and he asked, "So what if you know? I'm here today to send you to your death." Jinyue sneered. The sound of his sword rang out. He became one with his sword and turned into a ray of sword light, charging toward Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming shook his long spear and thrust it forward. The body of the spear was wrapped in the power of wind and fire. The power of wind and fire had completely fused. Bang! The long spear and the sword light collided. Waves of powerful shockwaves spread out. Then Jinyue let out a muffled groan, and her body was sent flying like a cannonball. How can he be so strong? As he flew back, the Golden Moon black-robed man roared in his heart. He could tell that Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the martial arts grandmaster realm, while he was at the 6th level. But the result was that a 2nd-level martial ancestor realm sent him flying with one move. How was this possible? Such a thing actually existed in the world. The Golden Moon black-robed man was shocked. "Oh, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.